This is Thursday, April 12th, the Scituate Planning Board hearing. We have an agenda that's been posted. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first on the agenda, the continuation of the public hearing for the residential cluster special permit for Seaside at Scituate. And here we are.
Hi.
Apologize again for being late.
No, not at all. Bill Orenberg, I'm here with Jeff DeLisi. I'm also here with Toll Brothers, with Dave Bauer, Scott Michelli. Also with us are Jim Ash, Kevin Klein, and Aaron Fredette. Okay?
Great.
To answer any questions which we have. At the outset, I'd just like to...
Excuse me, did you get someone? There's one, two, the third young woman?
I said Aaron.
Okay.
I said, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Traffic.
At the outset, I want to thank the board. We've been back and forth, talking with Karen, very helpful in just a couple of things at the outset, which is, I think is going to be very helpful for everyone.
Oh, okay.
We spent a lot of time since we got the conditions, which are super. And one of the things at the outset is a proposal to help us, I think, would move through, is Karen has told me that all the conditions that you folks have reviewed, we went through with our whole team, and we go through this, and we've accepted 57-something of them as they're written, which we want to submit. So if we want to go through that,
That would be fine.
Yeah, we've accepted all those as written.
There may still be, just so we're clear, there may still be comments from the board even on these, so.
Okay, yeah, sure.
yeah.
And just to be clear, we received a document, I think it was just yesterday, with some of your corrections.
And I'm going to go through that next.
Okay.
I'm going to make life really easy tonight.
Oh, you mean we might get out of here early?
Amen.
No.
Here for
After,
the duration.
That's too bad.
after speaking with Karen on the findings of fact, ignore our interlineations. The findings of fact as written will accept, other than under paragraph 2, there's just some acreage differences, which we'll point out. The only reason for those, our survey is accurate, but what happens is, when a plan goes to the land court has a different procedure where they tweak stuff a little bit, so sometimes the sizes vary, in a very small manner. So other than to point out what these little tweaks are under paragraph 2, that's it. The only other thing is under,
So just to be clear, the land court plan
yes,
is, the boundaries must be different than what we've seen? Is that right? If the acreage is different?
Scott can answer that. I think they changed, and we'll have it in a very infinitesimally small manner. What I mean is it's 70 acres as opposed to 70.04, because I think what happens is when they run their transects and whatever, that this is based on, usually what it is, there's a land court plan that was established in 1928 or something, and the computers today, when you do the calculations, are a little different. It's as simple as that.
It does say
Okay,
approximately, though, too.
I see the difference in that, but there's some differences that
The
are
main-
bigger, right?
The main parcel
Is-
is different from the A and R.
Correct.
And I'm gonna assume it's because it's gone through the whole land court, and they've fixed all the land court will tell them what they need to hold and what they don't need to hold.
Right.
And so that's why the calculation is a little bit different.
It looks like it's off by 4 acres, though.
Yeah.
What points,
That's not
0.04.
infinitesimal.
If I could clarify that,
Okay,
the property west of Hatherley, which constitutes the 142 units,
mhm,
not the entire parcel is land court. But there's a piece of land where, at the end of Road F, that has that group of units that ties into Ermine, that's recorded land, so that wasn't on the A and R, so that's that discrepancy. There's no real discrepancy. What we had on the site plan is pretty accurate, but when you compare it to the A and R only split up the land court piece.
okay. Maybe before we get too into the weeds on that, if you've got other things you want to go through, and
Oh, yeah, no.
then I'll just
No,
walk
because,
through these things.
okay.
Okay.
The only other thing is on the
We had by the way, just on that issue, we submitted a stamped letter today from our land surveyor that updated these calculations of the acreage. So that's in the board's record right now.
It's in your packet.
Is it in our packet?
Right, and I
Okay.
believe that Mr. Jalisi also indicated they were gonna redo the A and R at, you know, obviously not for tonight, but they were gonna redo the A and R because that had a different acreage. That only had like 48
That's this one, right?
acres, 48 acres for the townhouse property.
Yeah, you need the A and R to match what the land court
Right.
requires.
Right.
So we were gonna have to come back for the
Okay.
tweak on that.
Okay. Other things?
Yeah, the only thing is under paragraph J of finding of fact, it's a typo, there's one dash, it should be inches, not feet, so there's one strike where there should be two strikes, where it says 2.5 and 1.5.
You're not having 2.5 feet of binder?
Yeah,
Okay, correct.
okay,
Okay.
but that's it,
That's it?
on the findings of fact, yeah.
So, it's just, I actually thought there were a few sort of just editorial changes that actually helped this too, but.
Well, I did, but what I'm saying is in the interest of, I know we have more important things to
Yep,
do, they're de minimis.
okay. Good. Anything else? Has anything else been submitted that we haven't seen? Karen?
You got the letter on the acreages, and you got a comment from Mr. Jacobucci at 29, 27, whatever, Norwell Ave. That's basically the only thing that I believe you haven't seen.
Okay,
And there's a few things I didn't give you, very minor changes from town council. Most of them were commas, capital lowercase changes, which will be in a final version.
okay. Okay. Well, my suggestion is that we begin with walking through the findings of fact. We can do that.
Okay.
Well, it actually has been determined through the planner's listserv that you don't really have to read each one
Right.
of these things.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've been following this really closely. If you wanted to make a summary of what is in the findings of fact, you could do that, which it really just mirrors, you have to find what's in the zoning bylaw, and maybe you could just say that the findings of fact lead to the conclusion, and just read the conclusion of the findings of fact.
So if it's a help, we'll, as sent to us, other than those acreage discrepancy and the typo, we'll stipulate that we're in agreement with everything.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's not just about you guys. We got public here, and I want to make sure we adequately characterize what's in the findings of fact. If we don't have to read it verbatim, maybe it'll be easier to do. But it's probably worth just walking through the individual, sort of the findings, just to summarize the findings. Would you rather do that or just read these?
Well, we could be here until 10 reading this.
Well, you could read number 2, which just kind of says, that's the details about it.
Yep.
And then summarize 4.
Well, I think, yeah, I think what I would do is, just summarize the actual project out of 2, and then summarize the findings out of 4,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
I think that makes sense to me.
That would seem to make sense.
Where's number 4?
4 has the ABC, has the standards and then the findings in them.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to read number 2?
Yeah, because I would like to follow up. Number 2 is the one that has the issue about the land, and I'd just like to make sure I understand it.
The property that is the subject of the applications is a 70.4 acre parcel. Now, has that changed, the 70 point?
Yeah.
Is
Wait,
it
wait.
approximately?
Approximately 70.
Point
Yeah,
zero
you-
four.
I think you actually have that too.
Yeah, I do. .0, okay. Acre parcel located off Hatherley and Tilden Roads, 5.25,
Consisting,
5.25,
I think we
51.
should use this one, Ann. The one that's been edited a little bit, right here.
Okay, the subject,
So they've edited a little bit, which, some I think is fine. I think it really gets down to kind of the acreage, but
the property
subject
is.
property,
No, we're not putting in the red things.
I think we are.
You
We're
are.
putting
Well,
some of
there's a
it.
strikeout, there's two. There's additions, and then there's the strikeout, which you wouldn't read.
All right. The subject property is a 70-acre parcel located off Hatherley and Tilden Roads, consisting of the following approximate areas according to the most recent information provided by the applicant. 5 acres of the property.
55.
55, okay, sorry. 55 acres of the property, townhome property, located between Hadley and Tilden Roads, where the applicant has proposed to build 142 age-restricted townhomes. The townhome property is in the Residence R3 District and Residential Cluster District RC, and is the subject of the RC special permit. One Form A of approximately 1.7 acres west of Haverly Road, 13 acres east of Haverly Road, the eastern property. Of this eastern property, approximately 6 acres were divided into 9 buildable Form A lots, single-family home property, and 2 unbuildable lots with approximately 6.6
No, 7.8.
7.8.
7.8, no, it's 7 point,
Says it's 7.86 is, or is it 7.8?
7.86.
okay,
7.86.
acres, the marshland property. The eastern property is in the residential R3 district, residential cluster district, and partially in the floodplain and watershed protection district. Although the 10 buildable Form A lots, collectively the Form A lots, are not part of the RC special permit, they are included in the stormwater permit. The stormwater management system for the entire project includes the Form A lots. The board finds that the town's stormwater general bylaw and regulation requirements will be met by issuing the RC special permit and stormwater permit.
Okay, so I guess this gets us back to the question about the acreage here. This was originally, the townhome properties, as we've been calling them, was originally 51 acres, and now you're saying they're 55 acres. And so explain how the difference, how we got a difference of 4 acres?
I'm not clear where you're getting the 51 acres. Where is that?
That's on the drawings.
It's on the drawings.
Right on the front page of the drawings. It says it's 51.26 as the acreage of the RC development, which is different again from the A and R, which is 48 plus acres.
And so we have 51, 48, and 55. So what is it?
It's whatever our surveyor submitted today, which is the 54.995.
No,
55.
Right, 55.
55.
Is that approximate, or is it 55.0?
Well, the word approximate is prior to all of the calculations.
Right.
So all of the calculations are approximate, but with a high degree of, we're 90-some odd % through the land court process at this point. So there's been a good amount, very fair amount of back and forth at this point. There probably will be no changes moving forward.
So I guess what I'm coming back to is there's a set of drawings with these property lines shown, and that were calculated to be 51 acres. now they're 55 acres. Has the property line moved?
No.
How can that be?
So was the unregistered parcel added to that?
The unregistered parcel is included in the 55 acres. That's the discrepancy between the A and R plan. It's not a discrepancy. The A and R plan didn't include the unregistered piece of land because we weren't subdividing that.
Right.
But for the 51 acres that's on the cover sheet, I can't explain, it's still, I don't know where that acreage came from, you know, from the beginning, but when you map out the assessor's maps and parcel numbers that are listed on the cover, it includes all of the land that we have here. So there's no parcel that's missing or added.
Okay, so
I would
we,
say-
we can't trust the numbers on the drawings?
Well, that's why we gave you a stamped letter from a surveyor.
Well, I assume that's why you filed a set of drawings that had the correct information in.
Yeah, it has the correct information, but when the land court, all the plans we have was all surveyed, it was all accurate, but the land court determinations of this, under their calculations, they came up with something more, but what I don't understand is it's more acreage, it's not less acreage.
Right,
That
and,
which we
and
had.
it's not infinitesimal, it's not 70 versus 70.04. It's 51 versus 55, there's 4 acres of land somewhere, right?
I would-
200,000 square feet of land.
I would
Where did that
suggest
come
that
from?
we keep working on this issue,
Yeah.
that we identified this issue 2 weeks ago. Their surveyor was on vacation, so that's why we're just getting it today. I would suggest that we keep working with the applicant on this issue so that we can get it exactly finalized before the next meeting.
I would say that would be a great idea, and I would say it'd be great if that all reconciled to the drawings that we're
Yes.
recording. We should have all the same numbers everywhere, right? So,
Well, except they will be doing another A and R. They will be filing an A and R to.
for the infinitesimal differences, right,
To correct the A and R, so it's gonna meet these numbers.
right.
Whatever numbers we come up with in the end, the A and R will be redone, and that'll be the number that will be put on the page 1 of the RC special permit.
Okay, so we have to update that,
Yeah, we do.
and we have to make sure we're not carrying those numbers forward in the rest of the documents, right?
Right, yes.
Can I just add that every land court property that I've developed, we have run into this very issue, which is at the end of the approval process, we then go to land court. Land court evaluates the property and makes their own interpretation based on their data, and we always find discrepancies. And over 70 to 100 acres, 4 or 5 acres sounds like a lot, but sometimes it is a couple percent, a few percent. So we'll definitely vet this out and clear it. I just don't want there to be any feeling that there's some big snafu here. This sort of reconciliation is very common with land court land. But we'll clear it up and get
Close to
everything.
10%. This isn't, you know, I
I
understand
understand
they
the
may
math.
close
Yep.
the survey a little differently, but
Yeah, I could
there's
tell
a
you,
big difference.
we have experience,
Yeah.
and we see some big discrepancies sometimes.
Okay, well, let's,
So we'll definitely clear it up.
so that will apply to all of these acreages then.
Yeah,
We're
we
gonna
want
get
the
all the
opportunity
numbers to
We want
match.
the opportunity to work with the applicant to make sure they're all correct. And
Okay.
Yes, we absolutely do.
Okay. I guess in particular, I'm hoping it's just the way somebody's doing the survey, and it's not that you're moving boundary lines, property lines, correct?
The perimeter is the same.
Right, so we haven't captured another 4 acres of land somewhere.
No, the perimeter is the same. In other words, it still encompasses the same lots from before.
Okay. All right, I guess we'll wait till the reconciliation on that one. You want to go on to just summarizing the findings in section 4?
Just read them all?
That's pretty much.
I think that would probably be,
All right. As
might as well get to
required
it.
by Scituate zoning bylaw, section 510.4, design standards and requirements, the planning board has considered the extent to which the proposal satisfies the design standards detailed below. A, standard. The project shall contain a minimum of 20 acres of lot area. Finding. The proposed property exceeds this requirement and therefore satisfies the design standard of section 510.4. B,
A. 510.4A.
510.4A.
Yep.
B, standard. The bylaw requires a maximum of 1 unit per 10,000 square feet of lot area, but in no event more than 4 units per acre. Finding. 142 units are proposed on approximately 55 acres. The applications indicate that the proposed density is well below the maximum of one density of 1 unit per 10,000 square feet of lot area, and therefore complies with section 510.4B.
Excuse me, can I interrupt here? I mean, I believe that we should be reading from the town version, not the
yeah.
ODH version, because they've agreed to everything
All right.
except the, we're gonna rectify the
Okay.
acreages and that one little piece in J.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
All right. C, standard. Any land given to the town for recreation, municipal, or school use shall be included in the lot area. Finding, the area east of Hadley Road has not been included in the lot area for the residential cluster development, as the lot area of that land satisfies the lot area and density requirement without it, and therefore meets the requirements of section 510.4. D, standard. The height of the buildings in the RC district shall not exceed 2.5 stories or 35 feet in height, measured from the average finished grade of ground adjoining the buildings to the ridge. Finding, the applications indicate that all buildings will have a height less than 35 feet measured in accordance with this standard and therefore meets the requirements of section 510.4D. E, standard. All residential structures and accessory uses within the project shall be set back from boundaries of the development by a buffer strip of at least 60 feet in width, to be kept in a natural or landscape condition, except in relation to roads existing at the time of adoption of this bylaw, which such strip shall be 60 feet. Finding, no residential structures or accessory use buildings for the RC development are in the 60-foot buffer strip. There are underground utilities and natural walking trails in the buffer area, which are accessory uses to the residential structures that, upon completion, will be restored to a landscaped condition in accordance with the applications. A portion of the cul-de-sac of Road B, the hammerhead for Road F, and a significant portion of Road F are in the 60-foot buffer area. The board has balanced the limited intrusions of these specific roads into the 60-foot buffers with the following. I, the roadways are designed to minimize the possibility of substantial through traffic between existing ways. There is only one primary thoroughfare between Hadley Road and Tilden Road, one secondary connection to Ermine Street, and all other roads have been designed as cul-de-sacs, effectively limiting other connections to existing ways, i.e., double I. By minimizing the thoroughway connections to existing roads, the layout also works to minimize the total paved areas in the development, triple I. The buffer areas will be restored to a landscape condition, in all areas where roads are not located, and landscape conditions in the areas immediately adjacent to these limited roadway intrusions are not specifically designed to provide landscaped screening to augment the buffer areas. And IV, landscape plans have been provided showing landscaping to augment the buffers. Therefore, the project meets the requirements of Section 510.4E, as all residential and accessory use buildings are outside the 60-foot buffer, and only limited areas of the roadways are in the 60-foot buffer, which serve to conform to other conditions of the bylaw, G and N5, and all buffers will be left in either a natural or landscaped condition. F, standard, there shall be an adequate, safe, and convenient arrangement of pedestrian circulation facilities, roadways, driveways, and parking. Parking facilities shall be provided in a ratio of 2 1/2 spaces per dwelling unit, covered or uncovered. There shall be no parking in the buffer strip referred to in 510.4E. Findings. The applications provide sidewalks and trails throughout the site, allowing for safe, convenient pedestrian circulation. Roadways and driveways are safely arranged. There are 2 garage spaces per dwelling unit and 2 outside driveway parking spaces per unit. No parking is designed or allowed in the 60-foot buffer area. Visitor parking and clubhouse parking have been provided. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4F. G, standard. The planning board shall give preference to a layout which minimizes paved areas. Findings. The applicant demonstrated that the units have been clustered together, resulting in less roadway, driveways, sidewalks, and impervious surface than an alternative as-of-right site development for single-family homes. There is more total open space as less land is devoted to the above uses, and this open space will be protected in perpetuity by a condominium trust. On-site amenities for the private use of the residents include an outdoor pool, bocce, pickleball courts, and trails. The clustered design provides for less grading and fill than would be required under an alternative single-family home layout. The proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4G. H, standard. All residential units shall be connected to all public and private utilities at the developer's expense and in accordance with the rules and regulations of the Town of Scituate Department of Public Works, DPW. Finding. I, all residential units and accessory structures will be connected to Town of Scituate water and sewer, excuse me, and will meet the rules and regulations of the Town of Scituate DPW. 2, the stormwater management from the RC development will be collected, treated, and retained on-site, so there will be no increase in rate of volume of stormwater off-site. The pre-development stormwater runoff towards 6th Avenue has been further decreased post-development to accommodate runoff from 2 of the Form A lots. In addition, the applicant has agreed to install catch basins, a drainage channel, and a closed pipe system along the Hadley Road frontage on the west side of the property, discharging to the 6th Avenue storm drain line to help alleviate an existing flooding situation at 6th Avenue. The pre-development impervious area on the Form A lots along Hadley Road has been decreased under post-development conditions, and the stormwater management of these lots also meets the rules and regulations of the Town of Scituate. And 3, gas, telephone, cable, and electric utilities will be installed underground and connected to their respective private utility service. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4H. I, standard, the developer shall grant to the town such easements as it may request for the proper maintenance, testing, or repair of any public utilities. Findings. The applicant shows that easements will be given to the town for any public utilities and are shown on sheet 50 of 70 of the applications. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4I. J, standard. Quality of construction design standards for roads and utilities shall generally conform to those contained in the Planning Board's regulation for subdivision control and/or design guidelines for site development insofar as reasonably applicable. But the board may vary those standards to meet the needs of the RC district or general area. Findings. Roadway cross-sections and grades are in general conformance to the subdivision regulations. Adequate sightline distances have been provided for traffic safety. The roads in the development will be private in perpetuity, as they are not subdivision roads, but part of a residential cluster development, and they generally conform to many of the town of Scituate's rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land, except that the board supports the following variations to those standards. 1. Road B and G are longer than 600 feet. 2. Main and ancillary roadway curb-to-curb widths are narrower than the standard at 22 feet and 20 feet respectively, to meet purposes of the bylaw. 3. The roadway curbs are to be constructed on both sides with Belgian block curb. 4. The roadway sideway systems will be constructed with a 5-foot grass strip and 5-foot sidewalk on one side of the roadway, as details in the applications. 5. The pavement across section is 2.5 inches of binder and 1.5 inches of finish wearing course. 6. Utilities are underground. 7. The fire department agreed that the hammerheads and cul-de-sacs at the ends of some roads are acceptable for public safety. And 8. The drainage system is in general conformance to the subdivision's regulations, with the exception that high-density polyethylene pipe, HDPE, will be used on the development in place of reinforced concrete pipe, RCP, except for the drain line leading towards 6th Avenue, and in any town roads, RCP pipe will be used. K, standard, land not devoted to dwelling units or permitted access uses shall be set aside as common open space for the use of the residents. Findings, a condominium association trust will be formed to own and maintain open space in accordance with trust and maintenance documents filed during the proceedings. Trails within the development will connect this open space with roads and dwelling units and accessory uses within the development. The deed restriction will be recorded, providing that the open space will be kept in its natural state in perpetuity and not developed for residential use or for its accessory uses. The deed restriction will also provide for maintenance of the common land in a manner which will ensure its suitability for its function, appearance, cleanliness, proper maintenance of drainage, sewer pipes, and the like. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4K. Standard. The board shall ensure proper siltation control and site stabilization during construction. Findings. Erosion and sedimentation control plans have been included in the applications and are part of the overall site plan and shall be followed. A construction sequence has been included in the applications and shall be followed. The applicant has committed to file, prior to the start of any construction, and subsequently conform with an Environmental Protection Agency, EPA National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES construction general permit notice of intent with the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, SWIP. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4L. N, other design provisions of the RC district include. Do you want those to read too? All right.
M.
M, the planning board may grant a density bonus for developments that provide affordable housing. Findings, the residential cluster does not include any affordable housing, and therefore no density bonus will be granted for the development. The proposal meets the requirements of Section 510.4M. N, standard. Other design provisions of the RC district include standard 1. Standard, no more than 2 residential units may share a common facade line without having an offset of 3 feet for an adjoining unit. Finding, the proposal meets this requirement. 2. Standard, no building shall be more than 150 linear feet in length nor contain more than 7 units. Finding, all residential buildings are grouped in either 3 or 4 units and do not exceed 150 feet in length. The proposal meets this requirement. 3. Standard, buildings in the district shall be separated from each other by a distance of no less than 35 feet. Finding, each residential building is separated from each other by approximately 40 feet. Therefore, the proposal meets this requirement. 4. Standard, public bikeways and pedestrian walkways may be required by the board to provide circulation to common facilities. Findings. The board has required that a pedestrian walkway with a pedestrian-activated warning device be installed at the Hadley Road entrance in order to facilitate pedestrian crossings of Hadley Road and allow for beach access. A sidewalk is provided on one side of the road connecting to trails throughout the site and providing pedestrian access throughout the site. Therefore, the proposal meets this requirement. 5, standard. The planning board shall give preference to a design that minimizes the possibility of substantial through traffic between existing ways. Findings. The project layout and the design and width of the roads in the development minimize the possibility of through traffic. A rumble strip at Ermine Street will discourage through traffic and allow for emergency access. A do not enter sign will also be installed. Therefore, the proposal meets this requirement. O, standard, section 510.52A requires that the plan complies with the requirements under section 770.2 of the zoning bylaw, site plan administrative review. Findings. The requirements for this section have been met by the site plans and architectural design elevations and building layout materials submitted. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements. P, standard. Section 510.5.2.B requires impact studies to be submitted. Findings. The following impact studies were submitted and reviewed. 1, traffic impact study. 2, fiscal impact analysis, including an impact analysis on the public schools. And 3, engineering report, including water, sewer, and road impacts, as well as impacts on transportation facilities, shopping facilities, and local businesses. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirements. Q, standard, section 510.5.2.C requires other data by other regulations of the planning board. Findings. Additional water and sewer studies were done by the town's consulting engineer, Weston and Sampson, to verify that each of the town's physical piping systems have adequate capacity for the development. Therefore, the proposal meets the requirement. R, standard. The planning board shall require the construction of ways, installation of utilities, construction and installation of all other amenities required by the special permit and bylaw, as well as possible restoration of the site, be secured by a type and amount of security satisfactory to the board. Finding. The applicant will provide a security, therefore the proposal meets the requirement. S, finding. The project will clean up and remediate a site which has been unresolved for many years. The applicant has agreed to notify the Mass DEP of the last test results and has developed a site remediation plan for the near-term remediation of contamination. T, finding. The applicant's fiscal analysis indicates the age-restricted residential cluster development is projected to provide a positive source of revenue for the town. The applicant's analysis indicates the proposed RC development will have no impact on the town's school system, and the town should anticipate annual net positive revenue of approximately $795,000 per year. Finding. U. The applicant indicates that building permit fees and construction jobs will help boost the economy during construction. The applicant's analysis indicates that a total building permit fees are expected to total approximately $442,956 per year for a 3-year build-out, and the total peak construction jobs will be 355 construction jobs and 105 local jobs. V, finding. Mitigation will be provided through the Board of Selectmen to help fund select community projects enhancing the town as a whole, and may include a comprehensive water and wastewater capacity study that will develop a detailed methodology for the assessment of the town's water and wastewater systems to meet new capacity requests while preserving and enhancing the performance of the systems for existing users. Based on these findings, the planning board finds the residential cluster district special permit meets the requirements under the residential cluster district section 510, as the project will be in harmony with the general purposes of this bylaw and the requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, and it will not have a greater detrimental impact on the neighborhood than a conventional plan, is designed with consideration for health and safety, and is superior to a conventional plan in preserving open space, minimizing environmental disruption, and allowing for more efficient provision of services.
Very good. Well, that wasn't much of a paraphrasing, but
Well,
I think
hey,
we got it all in.
we got it all.
That's very
I
good.
just
So,
have one question.
Yeah, I was
Maybe-
gonna go back and say, are there any comments from the board?
It was just really minor, but I don't know since it was read into the record. On you, I think the total was 842,000? I think you said
Eight-
400?
No,
400?
842,956.
Right. I thought
You
I
could
heard
just
you say
round that off to
400.
843,000.
Right, whatever,
I mean,
Okay.
it does say approximately.
approximately, give or take a penny or two. All right, so what else do you want to read?
Any comments from the board on any of the findings of fact at this point?
Just curious, I know in the design standards, I know we met with the design review and that met all of the standards. I mean, but there really wasn't anything that said that per se.
There's a condition.
Yeah, there's a
It's
condition.
number 89.
There's a condition,
That
not in the
reflects what
findings of fact.
design
Oh.
review committee
Okay,
are the important things. The design review is advisory.
okay,
Yeah.
right, sounds good.
There is, item N was design standards, right? So
That's what I was thinking.
we addressed those.
Okay.
But those are specifically spelled out,
Okay.
right? So,
Steve, can I just make a point that
you may?
people often approach the planning board about why they approve projects when we don't have any water. And to be very clear to everybody, the planning board is not in control of the sewer and water. That is under the control of the Board of Selectmen. So, if you have a problem, I guess I would say you need to go speak to the Board of Selectmen, and we're happy to hear those issues, but we don't really have any relevant say over how and when, is that correct, and how this water is dispersed.
Well, we're reviewing this particular proposal.
Yeah.
We reviewed the water and the sewer and all of the other engineering reports that were delivered, and on the whole have concluded that,
Is adequate.
along with the support of the town professionals at the DPW, et cetera, have concluded that there's adequate service here. But it's also why I think, in my view, and hopefully the rest of the board's view, we've included item V, right? Which is that it's important that we make sure we have a very well-defined and well-thought-out methodology in the future to address incoming development. Any other comments, Ben?
For standard N, number 4,
N4, yeah.
I'm just wondering, the design standard as written in the zoning bylaws is kind of vague as to kind of who those bikeways and pedestrian walkways are being provided for. I just don't know, given the nature of this, the fact this is a private development, if anything needs to be included, I guess specifying that these are private bikeways or pedestrian walkways.
Are you proposing that we change something in here? I guess the standard
Think
being
about it.
public bikeways and pedestrian walkways, right?
Right.
And there are pedestrian walkways. Maybe that's a question for the applicant. I thought we addressed this before, but is there any intent to limit public access walking through here, et cetera?
The intention is really to leave it up to the condominium association to set its own policies, but the assumption would be that it's a private community, it's private property. In our experience, again, just speaking from experience, the associations often go in the direction of, trying to maintain the property as private property, because they just run into the same headaches that we all run into living on public roads, with people speeding through or vandalizing or dog litter or whatever it may be. So I think the expectation should be that these would be private sidewalks and trails. But it's up to the condominium association.
Well, it's also up to us making a finding on this particular standard, right?
And the other.
Standard is public bikeways and pedestrian walkways.
The other perspective that the condo has and that we have is that they are private roads, maintained, owned by the condo. They pay for them, they insure them. So typically, there's an expectation that they also can enjoy, the privacy to that end.
And are you anticipating that kids will cut through from the avenues?
Well,
to
that's
go
the
to
only thing.
Wampatuck?
The language of the bylaw and four does, it says to provide circulation or access to schools, playgrounds, parks, et cetera. But that's all I'm thinking is Wampatuck schools literally across this development. And so if you have children either coming from the A&R houses that Toll is proposed to build along Hadley Road, or the avenues and that neighborhood, essentially they would have to walk around this entire private development, which seems kind of, I don't know if, in my opinion, if that meets that essence of N4 in that case.
Well, they kind of do that now, right?
They,
They're supposed to.
They walk around this
Right.
entire parcel now.
right,
So it wouldn't change anything. I guess it really speaks to whether, and I think we had this conversation at one point in time as to whether this would end up being something like a gated community, right? And,
There's a condition that it's not.
Yeah.
right, I for one am not in favor of that. And,
Well, the public will be able to use the crosswalk. The crosswalk is gonna be on Hatherley Road, and the public will be able to use.
yeah, of course,
the
it's a public
crosswalk on-
facility there, right?
And the sidewalk that's going to be on Hatherley Road,
Mhm.
I mean, that currently is on Hatherley Road, the public would be able to use that sidewalk because it's in the town right away.
Yeah, and I think that piece of the find is perfectly fine, right? That says that. This says the sidewalk is provided on one side of the road, connecting to trails throughout the site and providing pedestrian access throughout the site. And I guess, I think what Ben's bringing up is that public pedestrian access, or is that access only for those inside the development?
Can I just emphasize that this is really an important issue to us? It's a very important marketing issue. The residents that live here are going to want their trails and their sidewalks to be private. And I would hope that the mitigation that we're offering might offset the impact that would otherwise be expected from public trails, i.e. a ball field at the school next door, I would hope is a fair compensation for that type of a compromise there. It's an important marketing issue to us.
And there were also little signs that say private property. Oh.
Typically, those go up. We don't really do that out of the gates, but more often than not, the residents put those up.
How do you enforce it?
You can't,
Yeah.
really, because you
Well-
don't know who's there.
I haven't run into an issue yet, knock on wood, where it really became some sort of a battle, but some signage and some self-policing usually steers away, the kids that are out causing grief or making noise coming through the community. But what we don't want to run into is someone coming in and saying, I have a right to be on your trails, and walking their dogs and creating all this grief. It's just not a good situation, and it impacts the marketability of the community. I have lived through that.
But we in Scituate also don't want to create an insular island in the entire town, too. It's still part of the community of Scituate as well.
I
right?
think
So
you'll find,
it's a pretty fine line, I
I
think.
think you'll find that actually this community will contribute greatly to your community. They'll volunteer, they'll be charitable. I think you'll actually feel quite the opposite from them, closing their doors to the community.
from my own sort of personal experience, I know with our subdivision and private road, my understanding is by insurance, we had to put signs that say like private property, like we didn't want to do that, but we had to because the insurance required it. But like, no one's going to like chase someone off the road, because they're
Until
there.
they do.
Well, unless they were drinking and throwing beer cans, then you could say, all right, now you're being a public nuisance.
Right.
And now you have an avenue to say, you can't sit here and drink beer and toss the cans off the side of the
It's no
road.
different than the condo docs may say you can have a planter on your front stoop with flowers in it. Everyone's gonna have them, and typically they're nice, but when the pink flamingos come out and someone abuses the policy,
Right.
there's something to fall back onto.
Right.
And I have lived through the experience where there's just that one bad apple that goes on the trail and causes a mess and then says, well, I have a right to be here. And that's just not, it's not a good functional situation to
Right.
create in a community like this.
So I can sympathize or see that, the need.
Yeah.
To be private.
I do think it is a fine line, you know? Because I don't think, well, I'm not in favor of creating a community that is isolated from the rest of Scituate. And, you know, that fine line can go, and it's a reason we proposed a condition that it never be a gated community, right? But I guess from the perspective, you know, they have addressed the crosswalk at Adderley Road, which I think is very important. And, you know, from the perspective of having sidewalks, there are pedestrian walkways in the community. So it really goes to whether, you know, there's a change in what we've written here. And I guess I wouldn't propose to change anything at this point, and we can deal with some of these other issues just as part of conditions. That would just be my thought on it. Any other? Is it something you want to propose to change?
No, I mean, I think a lot of that might be something that the applicant has to opine on. The only thing I would say that maybe would get changes in the last line, changing pedestrian maybe to like resident or something. The sidewalk is provided on one side of the road connecting to trails throughout the site and providing resident access throughout the site. Which might make it, just if we're kind of, I don't know, sticking to the definitions of how the language is spelled out.
Well, I think it was specifically written as pedestrian because that was the standard, right? Pedestrian walkways?
Yes, that was the standard, so that's the way it was written.
As in motorized walkways, the opposite of that, right?
Well, you could just insert the word providing residential pedestrian access,
I would be okay with that.
or resident pedestrian access.
It doesn't necessarily preclude it. It just defines who else can use it, it doesn't. I mean, I have no problem, you want to put the word in, put the word in.
It's all right with me too.
I mean, only if the board feels that that's helpful. I just was kind of pointing it out. I don't feel particularly strongly either way about the wording there.
I think that's the intent of the proponent here, right? Is that it is residential. You know, the residence is pedestrian access, right?
Now, I'm just curious, did you say that there would be like private property, no trespassing signs, or would you not have that?
We typically don't put them up, but I've seen the condo associations, you know, most of them will put up a tasteful, small sign, whether it be because they were guided to do so by their insurers, or they get a couple complaints at a board meeting, and they say, okay, we'll put up a little sign, and it's usually something that's just discreet. Again, the issues that I have experienced are the ones where that line is murky about whether or not it's private property, and there becomes some sort of a fight with someone that lives down the street, and then there's this whole, well, I have a right to be here type of thing, and it just creates a lot of grief at town hall, frankly, that I think we all want to avoid as well.
Right.
Okay, so I've inked in here residences or, something to the
Okay,
pedestrian access.
we'll put it in.
Any other comments on any of the other findings?
No.
Let me ask if anybody, let me ask our esteemed,
My only question is when they talk about the areas that are gonna be changed in number 2, they're saying numbers come up later on other
We'll fix them all.
standards, so they all will be
Yeah, well,
changed.
it's all gonna be
uniformly.
changed, yeah.
and they,
Yes,
I assume they come up in many of the drawings too?
yeah. Oh, I think just,
Just the cover sheet.
Just the cover
Just the cover
sheet?
sheet, I think.
Okay.
But we'll check on that.
Okay. Anything else, Janet? Okay. Yes, sir.
Since we've gone through the process of reading all of that, I think it probably makes sense to read the conclusion paragraph.
We did read it.
Yeah, good.
Did we?
We did.
Yeah.
Was it based on these findings?
Yes, I read
You
that.
got it, yeah.
Sorry.
You were asleep.
Back in Naples.
We didn't read all the conditions though, right? Or the
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
We
did.
read everything.
Mhm.
The only thing we didn't read was,
The general requirements.
general requirements,
I
yeah.
mean, they're,
yeah. Any questions from the public? Okay, well, I will, do we need to edit this? We still need to edit this, right? So we can't really
So I
make a
don't-
decision on this, right?
Right, I don't
Yeah.
recommend you do that until we get all it fine tuned.
Shall we then move on to conditions at this point?
do you have the conditions?
I have a
It's
proliferation
in
of.
the town, it's in the document, everyone has the document in town.
It's right after
Oh, okay.
Yeah. this one, labeled town. Yeah, you're in the right place.
Okay.
It's right after the findings of fact,
What page?
right here. Page, no page.
General requirements,
Starts with decision.
Condition.
decision,
Yeah.
okay. Shall we start? You want me to read this?
Yeah.
Or should we,
I think what we'd like to do here is, so the applicant has given us a list of things that they've stipulated to in terms of conditions that they will accept as written. That does not mean that anybody on the board can't address each and every one of these as well. So it might be worth us just walking through and see if anybody wants to talk about a particular item. And then certainly anything that hasn't been, that's not on your list for being acceptable, we should address as well.
Well, we can start with number 1, because they did include it.
Okay?
Can I ask a question, just procedurally, on how to eat an elephant? What my suggestion would be is, if you look at these numbers, and if there's any questions to discuss, otherwise those are gone, and now we're down to 30-something, of which 20 of them are typographical errors. Because I just think, if we know we're clear on all this, you've made substantial compliance. I don't want to run out of time and be on number 6.
Okay. Well, I think that makes sense. Do you?
Well, my only reservation on that is this is the first time that all of us have been together to talk about this, right? So we've seen versions of these things going back and forth. So I'm definitely leaving it open for any member of the board to raise an item on any issue.
Understood, but we may be surprised and find out that there is a great consensus on all of these.
We may be, and we may actually have consensus on some, and then after we get through them, come back to others too, so.
That's the way it could always be.
Yeah. So I would say that we'll start at number 1.
Number 1.
As we get to those that you've accepted, unless somebody on the board says, let's talk about it, we'll move on, okay?
All right. Do you want me to read number 1?
Yeah.
Okay, general requirements. 1, all construction work shall be done in accordance with a plan submitted by ESE Consultants, Inc. and Santec entitled Seaside at Scituate, Site Development Plan for Senior Residential Community, Town of Scituate, Plymouth County, Massachusetts, dated 3/24/2017 and revised through 2/9/2018, with any additional revisions needed to conform to the conditions contained herein, the Residential Cluster Special Permit, RC Special Permit, Draft Release Abatement Measure Plan Modifications by GEI Consultants, Inc., dated December 2017, Architectural Elevations by Toll Architecture, dated 8/31/2017, showing Andover, Bethel, Bristol, Bryn, Athen, Bucknell, Strathmere, unit elevations and and undated elevations showing unit groupings of Bristol, Strathmere, Bristol, Bethel, Andover, Bristol, and Bryn, Athen, Strathmere, Andover, and Bristol. These unit groupings show carriage-style garage doors. Final elevations shall be approved by the town planner prior to application for building permit for conformance with submitted materials. The planning board may require buildings to conform to the elevations or renderings at their discretion.
So this is one you had objected to?
Just a part of it, and most of it is, the last two sentences of this, it's redundant. In paragraph 47, this is going to be a recurring theme through most of this, is the last two, the third line up, final elevation shall be approved by the town planner, and the rest of that, we'd like that deleted. If you look at number 47, it gets into great detail as to exactly what the design review committee has and all of the other related issues. And otherwise, through there, I can point to 3 other provisions also. So what the goal here is not to have contradictory information in the decision.
So I'm, sorry, point to me how that contradicts.
47 gets into great specificity about what the elevations and amongst one of many components are supposed to look at. And it says we have to comply with those. And if it says we're complying with this, then there's a second enforcement mechanism here, albeit to start with, the actual enforcement mechanism under the general laws is the zoning enforcement officer, but putting that aside for a moment, final elevation shall be approved. This sets forth very specifically exactly what this is. So it says, this in my mind, being a more general application, means that there's a separate approval procedure apart from the requirements of section 47.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong here, Karen, and the way I'm reading this is that you have a set of requirements, and what we're asking is that the town planner have the ability to look to see that those requirements have been implemented before people start taking hammer to wood, et cetera.
That was the intent, that we we look at the building permit plans, make sure the elevations really
Conform.
resemble, with minor things, that may be different, but that we get to look at them before, and if there's a problem, we bring it to somebody's attention.
May I mention that when you say look at the building permit plans, we are going to be submitting permit plans every week to build the project at the pace that we've discussed in this hearing. So may I propose that we submit what I would call a master set of plans for each unit type that has kind of all the general sheets associated with each unit type, again, which we've talked about, maybe interchangeable building to building. You can review those, and that'll be,
I wouldn't
kind of
have a problem with that, that would seem,
I think this, again, it's not contradictory, it's check and balance, if you will, right? Because we've often had cases where people built something different than
Right.
was in here and was required by the planning board.
So we can do that, I just would like it to be that one
Master-
and done
master thing
situation.
Seems to work, I mean, that would work, I mean. as
That's
long as-
fine.
Jump on
If
that.
you can figure out how to
Yeah, we could work.
reword it or whatever, that's
we can
fine.
work on
That,
the wording
is that
for
okay with
That's fine
everybody?
with me.
Yeah.
Why don't you just move the last two sentences to 47?
We could do that.
That
But
way
I don't think it
This
gets to
building
her
height is-
master plan thing.
People
the
come in and
master.
are very concerned about the building height. If you spell it out where they see it, right, it doesn't bother me the fact that it's in two locations, because I don't think they're contradictory. If you were going to put it in one section and put it in 47.
But then address the master submittal if you want to do
Oh,
that.
agreed.
That's fine.
The next one that this,
Okay,
I
so,
have a problem with over 55 being labeled senior residential community.
yeah, seriously.
where's that?
They say senior residential community.
Well,
That's what's written on the drawing.
That's what's written on the drawings.
I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
all right, number
I'm
5.
trying to lighten it up a little bit.
Okay, well, let's just go, so we're gonna skip number 2. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Skip number 3. Skip number 4. And we're now on to number 5, right?
Total number of residential dwelling units on the townhome property shall not exceed 142, age 55 years and older, restricted townhouse units. The total number of bedrooms in the 142 dwellings shall not exceed 310, 116 two-bedroom dwellings and 26 three-bedroom dwellings. A deed restriction shall be recorded limiting occupancy to residents age 55 years or older for the 142 units. The condominium association trust shall enforce this deed restriction.
So, what was the objection?
The objection is last to the section 89 incorporates the master deed that has already been approved by town council, which has very, very specific language on that. And the language is also contradictory to what that says, because what the master deed says is that one of the two owners has to be 55, not everyone.
Right,
And
because
there's additional restrictions on kids, they
Right.
can't live there, whatever. So, we're fine with everything up to the word parentheses dwelling, because paragraph 89 isn't an approximation, it is great exactitude to it.
so what did you,
Okay, so how does, let me just bear with me for a second, let me read this. And does and I'll ask Karen this as well as the applicant, does the master deed deal with the enforcement?
Yes,
It does?
Yes.
yes.
How does it?
It says that the condominium trust is going to be enforcing,
So it essentially says this?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then it seems reasonable.
I don't have a problem taking it out, it seems, if it's totally repetitive, then let's take it out.
So we're saying we would take out, starting with a deed no. Right? A deed restriction? Is that what we're taking out?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, we're on to number 6.
One single-family dwelling unit is proposed on the Form A lot that was split off from the townhome property on the west side of Hadley Road, and 9 single-family unit dwellings are on the single-family homes property east of Hadley Road.
My only question, it's more of a question, that isn't a condition, it's a statement. And I don't know if that should be in the, if you want it in the finding of fact. We know, but I just don't want to, it's not a condition. I mean, it's a statement.
Part of the statement was done there for the sole purposes of the stormwater permit.
Okay, I was just questioning, it should be in a
That's
different
why-
place, that's all.
that's- I
But if
mean-
you're comfortable there, we don't have any objections to that.
Didn't we have the statement in the finding of fact?
Yeah.
Or did we cut it out?
we can go back and look, if it needs to come out, we can.
We could just put that into the finding of fact and not make it condition, right?
Right.
All right, number 7.
Okay, I'm just gonna, go ahead.
Number 7, access to all buildings shall be over the proposed private roads. There shall be no further extension of roads or attachments of any other roads or common driveways to the proposed private roads.
Two things. The word building needs an S on it. And then, to be consistent definitionally with your findings of fact, after that should say, on the town home property, capital T, capital P. And then the number 8, it's the same situation. I'm just cleaning up some stuff.
Buildings and,
Shall be over the proposed private roads.
So buildings on the town home
On the townhome property, right.
shall be.
okay.
And number 8,
Same thing?
same thing?
Just instead of the word development, townhome property.
Okay,
10 and
we're
11,
skipping number 9,
number 10,
number 10.
number 11.
Stop me, anybody, if you want to talk about any of them. Number 11, number 12.
Number 12, an easement shall be provided allowing the Seaside at Scituate Condominium Trust access to drainage and stormwater management systems which will be privately maintained to allow inspection, maintenance, and repair, and allow the town access in case of an emergency or to test water quality if this is deemed in the public interest. The applicant shall also grant to the town of Scituate a right and easement to construct, repair, replace, extend, operate, and use, and forever maintain all streets, water mains, sewer mains, and all surface and subsurface stormwater drains in, through, or under the streets and easements as indicated on the RC plan. The above shall not be construed to relieve the applicant and his successors entitled to the ownership of a portion of the land or any street within the subdivision, nor diminish in any way his responsibilities to complete all construction as required by the applicant's agreements with the town and to thereafter maintain all streets and utilities in a satisfactory condition.
Yeah, only 2 things is on page 12, first page, the word subdivision should be replaced by townhome property,
Okay?
all right? And the only other question, the intent here is if for some reason the association doesn't keep it up. So the only thing is on the second paragraph, it says repair, replace, extend, or operate. I just don't think the word extend is appropriate, because if there's something in place that has to be fixed, that's fine, but I don't think the town's gonna be creating a whole new system. Other than that,
Where did this language come from, Karen? Did this come from DPW?
Those came from standard subdivision conditions, so.
but this is only in the case that the town has an easement. I don't think, well, it's a belt and suspenders. This isn't.
Well, why wouldn't, if they had an easement, why wouldn't they be able to extend on that easement? I'm not sure I follow you.
Well, I guess the question is, if the town has an easement, could they go out and do a $2 million improvement?
Could they loop the line if it broke and, I mean, that's an extension, or could they,
Well,
could they decide to put a fire hydrant there or something like that? That would be sort of an extension.
these are repairs and replacements, but what the real matter
No,
is,
but it would be something new, so I'm saying something new that might go in.
well.
I'm not sure what you're concerned about.
I'm just reading the reasoning of it as in case of emergency. So, I don't, if something's in a case of emergency, I don't think you're extending and creating new infrastructure.
You might be replacing it.
Yeah, you might be replacing, might
I
be
think repair,
repairing.
replace covers what it is.
Okay.
I'm not sure I agree with that. So you're granting the town a right of easement to construct, repair, replace, extend, operate, use, for public purposes, right? And it may be part of what the town ultimately decides to do for their system, that they would extend something, put something new in there, I guess I don't see the issue, I guess.
Yep.
And why limit the town in its ability to do what it needs to do with its public infrastructure?
Well, I disagree, but leave the word in, because I don't want to get bogged down on something like this.
Okay.
Okay, 13. An independent
13,
third-party inspector employed through the town shall perform the required construction inspections according to section 9.0 of the subdivision regulations. All required inspections shall take place and be inspected by the inspector, including water and sanitary sewerage facilities. The third-party inspector shall be approved by the town planner and DPW and shall work with the town planner. Noise and air quality monitoring shall also be required. Weekly written reports, if any, shall be submitted to the applicant and the planning board stating results of any and all required inspections.
2 comments. Number 1, we want monthly reports, not weekly reports. It's untenable. And secondly, all the language is fine other than noise. We'll get into the noise section on what section 310.701 says.
Okay.
But other than the word noise and monthly, we're fine with the rest of it.
I would say I'm fine with monthly unless something happens that requires more frequent reports. Does that work for you?
So what's the proposed language?
Monthly written reports shall be submitted to the applicant and planning board stating results of any of all required inspections. The frequency of such reports may change as a result of what is actually reported. If you find something that's broken that has to be inspected more frequently,
That's fine.
then we would expect you to do that.
Fine.
Just want to say unless more frequent reports are
Necessary?
necessary.
Mm-hmm.
14 is okay. 15, the certification of the roadway construction and utilities shall be accompanied by as-built plans signed and stamped by a professional land surveyor and the supervising registered professional engineer. Prior to issuance of any occupancy permits, a registered professional engineer shall inspect each building and certify to the planning board and building commissioner that the grading and stormwater management systems conforms to that shown on the RC plan and are functioning in accordance with design requirements.
I think number 90 covers this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the number.
90.
90.
Yes, it does.
Sorry, I'm reading this again. So that would, let's see,
I'd say we should make a combination of the two to get the wording from.
right, because there's a professional
get the-
land surveyor here
to get
too,
the
right?
wording in from 90 and 15, but.
Okay, so we'll
it's
we'll
Incorporate.
reconcile those, right?
Yeah, and the other comment, when we get to 90, it should be professional engineer or professional registered surveyor.
Disagree,
No,
Why?
on the
because
stormwater design? We're expecting a professional engineer to sign off on that.
the engineer certifies that the engineering's done, the surveyor is the one who certifies that the survey is correct.
As long as the language reflects that.
Okay, we can work on coordinating those two languages.
Okay,
Okay,
that's good.
16,
16,
at least one speed bump shall be required on Road F and Road A to keep speeds in the town-home property under control.
Our comment is that in Janet's here, all our peer review never recommended any of that, so I'm wondering where it's coming from.
It's coming from the police department and the fire department, because they are not, the only roads that they actually can issue tickets for, the only thing they can issue ticket for is somebody goes through the stop sign at Tilden Road and Hatherley Road. they can't issue tickets in the private development. They suggested it would be a helpful enforcement issue for the community for safety purposes.
Jen, what do you?
Well, I would never go against the police department.
Well, yeah, unless you want to get pulled over.
You know, it becomes a safety concern. Speed bumps frequently are a problem for snowplows.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's always
The flip side.
the issue, but.
I've seen speed bumps in private ways down on the Cape.
That are
actu-
removable,
That
right?
are removable
Right.
and put on the side of the road until after, because nobody's going to be speeding through slush and ice. And so then, once spring comes, if it ever comes, you put them back in, part of the maintenance.
So what are you suggesting? It says one removable speed bump?
Well, it doesn't even have to say remove, it's up to you.
Yeah, you can make it removable or
You
not.
can make it permanent or removable.
Can we leave it up to the condo association? Because they, you know, they're as thorough as any police department I've ever dealt with, and I've put in some speed bumps where requested, and then the other 90% don't request it because they
They hate
also
them,
police, so they don't like them.
especially if they're
Because it
too
slows them
high.
down?
No, it's just that, you know, they might rattle the car over it, you know.
I'm fine leaving it up to the, personally, I'm fine leaving it up to the,
Would you
to
want to
the
just take the whole
condo.
thing out? I mean,
So am I think if they need them, I mean.
I think we can say it is recommended, right? That at least one speed bump be installed on Road A and F, but such determination shall be made by the condominium association.
Well, I'd ask that you strike it, because what that recommendation can do is
Cause liability.
It can cause a number of different things, and it can make it difficult for a condominium board that's trying to make what they think is the right decision, but there's one person in the crowd that's saying, it's recommended. I mean, I'd suggest that you let them do what's best for the community when it comes
Well,
to this.
I'm balancing that versus what our police department has recommended as well. So that's why I was trying to sort of balance that.
well, just so everyone understands, I mean, they don't do traffic enforcement in the development.
Right.
That's, I mean, just,
And they're recommending you do
I don't
this
even-
in order to
I don't even
manage
understand-
speed.
I don't understand what the
Restricted the through
recommendations
traffic.
for that.
What?
We've restricted the encouragement of any flow-through traffic. So the traffic's gonna be there, it's gonna be internal to the residents.
Right, I'm assuming the police department recommended this because he wasn't worried about people coming into the development. He's worried about speed in the development, right?
I'd much rather say the condo association will install speed signs of 15 miles an hour and enforce fines if violations occur, something to that effect, rather than installing some kind of a improvement that might frustrate everybody and have to get repaired if it's permanent and torn up by the plows.
I could live with that.
I think that they, police would live with that.
Mhm.
I mean, they just noted that there's a couple areas where there's some fairly long straightaways,
Yep,
and, you know, it's possible, but we can work with their language.
they will have to respond if there's, an accident, right? So
Right.
I
they'll
think
have to
they're just
respond, but they-
providing general public safety recommendations here, and I'm fine with writing it the way you suggested.
All right, 17,
So Karen, you'll
Sorry.
put some language, you guys will
Yeah,
put
we'll
some language
coordinate,
together.
we'll coordinate.
Okay.
we're all set unless anybody has any questions all the way through. The next questionable one is number 31.
So, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, I'm just going through them real quick, 22. Nine, 30, okay.
Okay, 31. Under the stormwater permit for the 10 Form A lots, erosion and sedimentation control is required at the limit of disturbance and around any stockpiles. Stabilized construction entrances are required for each lot, and all rooftop runoff shall be infiltrated into subsurface recharge systems, which shall be installed at least 2 feet above the seasonal high water table. NPDES and SWIP requirements identified in condition 62 must be met for the Form A lots.
Okay. So, 62 should be 63. And the opening on the first page is fine, up to the word each lot. And then I'd say period, because the peer review, we already have a stormwater basin, and we have a stormwater plan that's not based on that. And the other thing with the groundwater as it is, you probably can't get 2 feet above it. But the stormwater system's been reviewed, approved, and you can ask Janet,
Right, but
that's not.
these
that's
are
not part of-
addressing the Form A lots.
Huh?
These
Yeah,
these are addressing the Form A
you're-
lots,
Yeah, you're
right?
under your a stormwater permit covers these, and there is a stormwater system that actually collects water behind these, and so these rooftop, the only things we object to is, and all rooftop runoff, the subsurface recharge be installed at least 2 feet above the seasonal high water table, period. Just that language, the rest, the beginning before then and after that is fine, because that's not what the stormwater design is. It's different from what the stormwater design's been approved.
And so you
It is?
You wanna have, say, stabilized construction entrances are required,
Right. And we said fine.
then nothing else?
Yeah, well, just to.
Decent SWIP requirements.
Yeah, and then.
Assets can stay.
Yeah, and then all the rest of it is, SWIP, NPDES, SWIP requirements identified in condition 60 must be met in the form of, in Form A lots.
Take the infiltrators out.
Yeah, so that's all.
Yeah, okay, well, it is, they're already meeting their stormwater, you've already kind
Right.
of, in the findings, you talked about the stormwater management being appropriately designed, so I
It
think
is.
it's a.
So the Form A lots have an appropriate stormwater.
They are meeting,
Design.
they reduced their
Yes.
impervious cover on those lots, so it has been, their stormwater has been reduced because of their impervious cover being reduced.
I'm not
So
following that.
they have to meet their, pre and post runoff, and so they're meeting their post-development is not increased over pre-development because they have literally taken away a bunch of the concrete roadways that are there, and then now their houses are less
I
on
gotcha.
the first area.
Gotcha.
So therefore, they've met that requirement. They
Okay.
met their other recharge requirements with all of their systems that are on the larger lot, the larger townhouse
Towns.
property. So they met those recharge requirements with that.
Okay. So we're striking from "and" all the way through the end of that sentence and leaving NPDES and SWPPP requirements, et cetera.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
okay. Is that good?
No problem.
All right, 32. No heavy equipment shall be used inside stormwater basins once they are constructed.
Skid steers have to be used for cleaning the basins. That's the only exception, except for SKID, STEERS for cleaning the basins. That's the equipment that's used to clean the basins.
The only concern there was that the basin not become overly compacted so that the infiltration occurs. That's why the condition was put in there.
So will the skid steers create that compaction?
No, that's why they're more spread out, so they don't.
No, I know they're spread out, but, so you're comfortable with that? Okay.
All right, number 33. In lieu of looping the water main on Road F by units 45 through 54, the applicant shall install 300 feet of 8-foot ductile iron water pipe on Ermine Street and transfer those abutting services to the new line.
Well, that's the same discussion we've had several times, is that does, we've already asked a few times if it had a scintilla of anything to do with improving water, and it has nothing to do with anything other than it's, can you do another municipal project for us?
I have a problem with this, and I think I had mentioned it.
Yeah.
I really do have a big problem with it.
I don't disagree with you.
And I think that it's actually asking for something that is just not tenable.
Bill?
I don't think I need to do this.
No.
Anybody else? Comments? Okay.
Gone.
I think we're okay with deleting it.
34 is okay, 35, 36, 37. The applicant shall install an LED enhanced MUTCD compliant pedestrian actuated warning device at the Hadley Road crosswalk as a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, RRFB, system. The applicant shall install 2 digital speed signs on Hadley Road and 2 digital speed signs on Tilden Road. Such mitigation shall be completed prior to the completion of all off-site work, including the pavement overlay on Hadley Road. Exact locations to be confirmed with the town engineer and police department prior to occupancy of the first building.
There's just a few words Aaron pointed out to us on the second line after the word crosswalks.
Yeah.
The words to be stricken is as a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, RRFB, all the system, all the rest of that. And Aaron, the reason for that?
Since we originally proposed it, the FHWA approval for RRFBs has been rescinded. It was just not to do with safety, but more with patents. And so those are no longer blanketly approved in, well, anywhere in the US, but specifically in Massachusetts. So what we've included in the plan is an alternate flashing beacon that instead of the quick rectangles, it's just a single circular light, like a yellow light in the middle of a red, yellow, green signal that flashes when it's push button actuated.
So should we say as an alternate flashing beacon?
It's on the plan?
Yeah, I mean, the spec that we use, the title is pedestrian actuated warning device, so we just replicate that language here.
Okay, so there's no need to have any more clarifying language on that? That's pretty clear. I think there was actually a submittal on this, right, of what this thing looked like and all that? Okay. It's okay. I'm okay with that.
All right, so we did 37.
Well, they said they had something else.
No, that was it.
Okay. 37, 38 is okay, 39. Now we go to 40. Remediation shall occur as described in the draft release abatement measure plan modification, RAM plan for Mass DEP RTN 4-18143, dated December 2017 by GEI Consultants, Inc., with the additional conditions and clarifications below. A, no later than 1 month prior to any land disturbance associated with site remediation, groundwater samples shall be taken in areas proposed for remediation. Samples shall be analyzed for the appropriate parameters to confirm that contaminants in the soil that will be excavated have not migrated to groundwater at a concentration that exceeds Massachusetts Contingency Plan, MCP, groundwater standards that are appropriate for the property. If contaminated groundwater is detected in the samples above MCP standards, the applicant will provide a plan and schedule to remediate contaminated groundwater for approval by the town prior to the commencement of any on-site remediation activities. This should include an update to the dewatering procedures in the RAM plan as needed to address any new identified contamination.
So, any issue with that
We're
language?
fine with A.
Okay.
B,
Can I offer one question on that? I presume that to mean from existing wells.
yes, that's what we had talked about. Before you fill them, we wanted them to be tested,
Thank you.
okay?
Is there somewhere we can just modify this language? Well, Karen, you can find a place to put that.
We shall be taken from existing wells in the areas proposed for remediation.
Yeah.
Okay, great. B, the applicant shall install a 6-foot-high metal fence secured to the ground around the perimeter of all such remediation areas prior to any work thereon, so as to ensure that workers do not disturb any of these areas while remediation is going on.
The only word we put in front of work is unauthorized workers, because obviously someone has to do the work.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, C. Contaminated soil removed during remediation activities will be live loaded only, no storage of excavated contaminated material shall be allowed. Any necessary dewatering needed to access contaminated soil will be managed as described in the RAM plan.
Okay.
D, which one of these D, E, which
No,
one's?
DEF, fine, G is the first one where there's a question.
All right. If potential contamination sources are identified by the town, the applicant will be notified and the town will provide recommendations on additional soil and/or groundwater testing to confirm the presence or absence of hazardous materials. The applicant will follow these recommendations or proposes an alternative approach acceptable to the town to evaluate the presence or absence of hazardous materials.
We're all set right up till we get to G.
That was G.
That was
Oh, I'm
G.
sorry, geez, you lulled me with that sonorous voice.
She did it.
Sonorous
So
voice.
it's really not an issue, because you blew right by it.
Oh, man.
Oh,
No,
wake up.
Yeah, just linguistically, we'd propose, if the potential contamination sources are identified by the applicant, I don't think the town's identifying the sources, by the
By
applicant.
the applicant, okay.
But if are identified, comma, and then we'll say, the applicant will provide recommendations.
Well, I think this was actually written as if the town had identified something, right, and notified the applicant. I think that's kind of the way this is written. I'm fine with writing it as being sort of, a two-way street. Whoever identifies it, right? The applicant has to be notified, the town should be notified, and there should be a remediation proposal, right?
Wasn't identified. Well, if potential contamination sources are identified, that means by anyone, the applicant will notify the.
We'll notify the town, right?
So you just changed the word applicant to town in the first line, right?
Nope.
No?
No, you just say, if any potential contamination sources are identified,
Right.
the applicant will notify the town,
And will provide recommendations, blah, 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 blah.
right?
And then on the third to last line where it starts, the applicant will follow these recommendations or propose, strike the S on that. And the rest of it's fine.
Okay.
All right. H, I, and J,
Under H,
remediation shall be complete prior to any infrastructure installation or building
Needed.
construction. No occupancy permits will be issued until all remedial activities are
okay,
complete.
but the discussion we had before is they're gonna have multiple things going on. At the last meeting we had, we said it wouldn't be anything in the proximity of this, but one of the things is we wanna be able to build our infrastructure, put up our model home office in clubhouse.
Well, it's a host of maybe 100 tasks, but what we had discussed was where some folks had expressed concern about there being so much going on that the areas of remediation might not be clearly delineated, we offered to put fencing around those areas, which is in the conditions. But the assumption all along and the critically important need for us is to be able to start working this project from many different angles. So that means site improvements, that means marketing things, tree clearing, which we're gonna talk about in a bit. So that first sentence, in our view, is not what we had discussed, and we'd asked for it to be stricken.
Because the overall view, which we're gonna get to is a bigger issue, is we wanna mobilize, get all trucks off the road, all storage of any materials off the road. So coming in from Tilden Road, where a lot of the work's gonna be done, gotta get in there and have a site that you can do this. In the absence of doing this, you're gonna end up with a gazillion trucks out in the public way.
Well, I
Because it's
think,
a
I
huge-
think,
it's a huge
I
site.
think our intent here, right, is that the remediation begin
Yes?
and that it get done, it be prosecuted to the end without any delay,
And we have that in here.
right? And that we certainly wouldn't issue any occupancy permits until this is all done, right?
Right.
But that you can't do anything that will impact the ability to complete the remediation once it's started,
Absolutely.
right? And so that may mean there are things on the infrastructure, installation, and building construction side that you cannot do, right, until you do this. And I think that's all we were trying to get to,
Right, but it doesn't with the completion of
Maybe it
this.
doesn't say that,
No, it
but
doesn't.
that's the language I think we need to make sure happens, because it's our expectation, in accordance with your plan, that
Right.
the remediation effort is gonna be one of the first things that gets done after you've, done get some access to the site, right?
So can I propose that it say something like, at no time shall construction activities on the site impede the progress of the remediation? Something to that effect? Because that's really what we're expecting, is that we start on day one with remediation. It
Mhm.
does not stop. It's a separate vendor, that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul because that vendor is
Right.
going to do something else. And they keep moving, weather provided, until they're done.
And paragraph 44 amplifies that it's be started and carried through to completion without interruption.
Right. But this is sort of getting to other things around it that interrupt it, right? And so I'm fine with that language. I would be okay. How about anybody else?
I think that language works very well.
Yeah. So I'd be okay with that.
At no time shall construction activities impede remediation. No occupancy permits will be issued until all remedial activities are complete. You're up, that's what you want.
Yeah, I think that's,
It's fine.
that's,
Okay.
Okay.
you could lawyer it up a little bit if you want, but.
Okay. Groundwater, aye?
We were suggesting that be stricken, and Jim,
Yeah, we've already agreed to collect groundwater samples from those wells that were in the remediation areas.
Mhm.
And there are multiple other wells that were installed historically in other parts of the site that I'm not sure of their condition. And my judgment is that those do not need to be sampled prior to removal, since we've already agreed to sample those wells that were in the remediation areas.
This was agreed
Janet?
to early on. This was agreed to early on for a protection of the abutters.
Right.
Right. I think that was the idea, right? Is
Before you remove them.
before you rip them all out, do
Test
one more
them.
set of tests, right? I think that was, and I do believe we talked about that
Yeah.
quite a bit.
And I think I was the one that said it.
Listed up here in A. I mean,
Now, A is to be done before you do any land disturbance, right? This one is to be done before you actually rip out the groundwater monitoring wells.
Can
Or-
I be
or
clear?
eliminate the groundwater
I-
monitoring wells, sorry.
Sorry. I remember the conversation, and we committed to test groundwater, even though in our minds, we've tested it, peer-reviewed it 3 times over. We agreed to do some groundwater testing, but there may be 100 wells spread out across the site, however many there are. We just want the testing to be a well within the proximity of the remediation areas, not every well that's ever been installed on the site. That's the critical difference here.
I think that's what we were expecting, but Janet, correct me if I'm wrong there.
And I think the goal is to get the areas that there's a concern.
Where there's
with,
remediation,
And
right?
not just
Everywhere.
every single one of them, though I don't know if anybody has any concern that there could, something has spread and hadn't found it. But I think that was the idea of doing the testing where the remediation is a concern. You can make sure that the outskirts are clean. If those are clean, then
Everything's clean, right.
Yeah, so maybe this is something that we ought to identify as, first of all, those perimeter wells. Those are the ones, don't take anything else out, right?
and the ones that are within
The ones that are around the remediation area, test those.
Test those.
You can if those are good, you can remove those, and then anything beyond that perimeter is okay
Is okay.
to be removed.
That seems
Right.
reasonable. So if for some reason there's a concern.
Right, if you
some
find a
of the
problem, then you want to be able to go to a well that exists already, right?
level,
Yeah.
then it's just-
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay, well, maybe you can help
So, yeah,
Karen
maybe
figure
it's
out how to write it.
Additional, maybe it's just additional groundwater monitoring wells made, testing may be needed
If necessary.
if necessary, maybe found.
Well, I think you're going to have to
We'll come up with
differentiate. You're just going to have to
We'll
say
come up with language.
the groundwater monitoring wells around the perimeter of the remediation
Remediation area.
effort, are the first monitor, are the only monitoring wells that you would
That's
remove those
indefinite.
first, right?
Yeah.
You would test them and remove those first, unless the test says there's a problem,
Right.
right? And then you can remove,
If those are
The
all
outer
good,
wells.
and then everything gets,
I do have a question about that, though. Given the nature of groundwater contamination, it could be possible that those wells in the remediation area are non-detect, but perhaps a plume of non-aqueous phase liquid or some other contaminant that hasn't necessarily been identified has migrated to one of those other wells. I mean, if we're gonna test other wells at all, I don't understand the logic, I guess, trying.
Well, we discussed this before, that the round of sampling that was done by Toll most recently was the end of multiple rounds of groundwater sampling at the site. So all of these wells have been sampled multiple times over the course of about 10 years. So that concept of there being a plume doesn't exist at this site. The contaminants themselves in soil are relatively insoluble, so there hasn't been any change in conditions that would result in that migration to another location. So I think this concept of resampling in the vicinity of the remediation areas is a good idea, because there is residual soil contamination that we're addressing. But there is no reason to suspect that there are conditions in groundwater elsewhere at the site, given the 10-year history of investigation that has occurred there.
how many wells are we talking about?
You know, I don't know. There were multiple wells installed by multiple investigations. Frankly, I don't know the condition of all of them. We haven't done a complete survey. But I do know there were, at least a dozen, perhaps 24 wells that were installed over that period of time.
But your testing didn't go to those 24 wells then?
GEI didn't do any testing.
Well, I mean, the most recent round of testing, let me put it that way. Are we expecting, in other words, that we've tested 10 wells and we're gonna find 100 out there? Or is it, we've tested 10 and there's really 20, or something like that?
I don't know the exact numbers. I couldn't tell you that. I think it's probably 10 have been tested, and there are at least 20 total at the site, based on my recollection of the distribution. So I understand your concern about sampling appropriately to make sure there's been no change in condition. But I think that the proposed sampling in the areas where soil contamination exists is appropriate for that. And there frankly has been no change in conditions, no new activities since that investigation work was conducted that would result in a new condition that we need to track down again.
Right, I get that. I guess part of this condition was, like Karen had said, we kind of had talked about this earlier on in the process, and a lot of it was a response to public comment, and in the essence of being prudent and trying to alleviate some of the concerns that people had. I mean, this particular site, just to be frank, around town, people tell me, I would never live there. I'm not gonna live there. There's a lot of history and people's conceptions about this, and I think that doing a more rigorous analysis before everything's closed off, built, and put to bed, that would really help your product with the community. That's just my 2 cents, but from an environmental science perspective, by all means, you guys.
I respect that, and to be frank, we're very sensitive to it. We're the ones that have to go figure out how to sell 142 homes on the property. And quite honestly, I feel like we have done layer upon layer more than could ever be expected in terms of environmental analysis. We could have done nothing, but we did a phase 2 analysis, and then we could have settled on that, but we hired Jim and spent a lot of money to peer review the work we had already done, and we're at a point where we're never going to be able to make everybody happy. There is always going to be somebody out there that says, well, what if there's this, or what if there's that? And I'm sorry that that's just the reality, but I really don't think it's reasonable, after everything we've talked about and had peer reviewed, to go say, well, let's just go test more in the abundance of caution. I think we have a really thorough protocol here, and I'd like to just stick with what's been peer reviewed.
Well, I don't think people are saying just go willy-nilly test. What they're saying is you're gonna come to a point where you find a groundwater treatment well that maybe you haven't even found before. And the question is, what do? You just bulldoze it over, or do you test it before you permanently close it, right? And I don't know, if I were in your shoes, I would probably want to test it, because I'd want to know that I didn't have, any other problems there, but.
So Janet's language was, we're gonna test all the wells that are in the proximity of the remediation areas, and if any of those testings merit that further testing be done, then we'd do that.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to, what are you gonna do when you find the other wells? What's the plan with the other wells?
We have wells out there for a host of reasons. They're not just for environmental testing. There are wells we use to figure out the stormwater system.
Mhm.
So there may be things we'll find from the
I'm not
facility.
I'm talking about those that have been installed for groundwater monitoring.
There's a protocol for properly abandoning, removing a well that was installed for monitoring purposes, so those protocols will be followed. In other words, there wouldn't be a plan to simply sample every well that is found. We would rely on sampling those wells that are in the remediation areas, and if warranted, additional downgradient wells if something was found in those. But beyond that, we propose to then abandon all remaining wells once that process was complete.
Ben, do you have any sort of modification to that approach, or?
Not really. I don't know.
If it helps, I mean, I think the Board of Health, I got a comment late today from the Board of Health and Conservation, and I think they would just support what was just stated
Okay.
on the monitoring wells,
The approach?
the approach that was just stated,
Which approach? Our approach?
yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That-
Wells within the remediation area will be tested,
That-
and if warranted, additional
right, yeah.
down gradient wells will be tested.
The language that Janet and I will come up with.
Right. And no down gradient wells will be removed until
That's correct.
the up gradient wells are finally tested and retired,
That's correct.
right? You only get one shot at going back to them. Is that acceptable?
It's fine with me.
Does that work for you, Ben?
Yeah, I mean,
Bill?
I'm fine with it.
How about J?
We're fine.
J is fine? Okay, so that was 41, whoops, 41 is
40.
here. Site noise level shall conform with the Mass DEP's Division of Air Quality Control's noise policy, and the source of sound will be considered to violate Mass DEP's noise regulations. 310 CMR 7.10, if the source increases the broadband sound level by more than 10 decibels, A, above the ambient, or produce a pure tone condition when any octave band center frequency, where did this come from? Center.
This is straight out of policy.
Straight
Oh,
out of the policy.
Okay, frequency sound pressure level exceeds 2 adjacent octave bands by 3 or more decibels. A baseline condition is advised to be taken prior to the commencement of any construction activities. Should the applicant choose not to obtain pre-construction baseline, and it becomes necessary to establish a baseline condition for the purposes of measuring conformance with the noise policy, all construction activity on the project and any associated Form A lots will be shut down in order to acquire a non-construction baseline.
Well, our question is, that we're all fine with the first sentence, noise, and again, without getting into this, I'm perfectly comfortable say, site noise level shall conform with Mass DEP's Division of Air Quality Noise Policy, 310 CMR 710, period.
That's all we need?
The rest of it was provided to be abundantly clear that if you choose not to develop a baseline now, and you need to develop a baseline, we will expect you to shut the site down to develop the baseline,
Well. when
right?
you get- when you
So,
get-
I mean, it's your choice, right? But I'm just telling you that if you don't want to establish a pre-construction baseline now, you're going to have to go back and establishment if there is a problem with noise. And it's just something you have to be aware of.
That's it.
Yeah, no, we're okay with the language, but I prefer, without getting into, I could spend a long time discussing the nuances, but we're perfectly fine with saying coding will comply with 310 CMR 710. And number 78 also amplifies that, also, talking about the need to keep equipment in proper order to ensure sound reduction and all that, so that's there also.
So, I'm sorry, let's go back to 41. So you're okay with 41?
No, I'm okay with I wanted the first sentence, site noise level shall conform with Mass DEP's air quality noise policy, period, 310 CMR 710, period.
And delete the rest?
Right.
I think our issue is that there's a lot more to that policy, and some of it's been taken out, and we'd rather just refer to the policy and be governed by the policy, not by an excerpt of the policy. We fully understand that whatever's in the policy,
We have to
we'd
comply
be
with.
subject to.
And you're going to do a baseline condition before you start.
I haven't even discussed
We haven't got
our
that far.
approach, but we want to evaluate the policy, come up with an action plan, and we just don't want to take excerpts from the policy and put it in this permit.
We just want to be clear that if we have to deal with a noise problem, we are going to ask people to measure, and which means we are going to need a baseline, right?
Take that under advisement.
And that baseline, we don't want anybody screaming 2 years from now, right? When we say you got to shut down for the next 3 days while they take the construction baseline, right?
Why
Sounds-
couldn't we just go through, do what Bill said, go the first sentence through 310 CMR 7.1, and leave your last sentence in? Take
That's
out
what
the
I'd
middle
do.
part. Take out the middle part that you don't want about the broadband sound level.
Well, you're right, that's covered in 310 CMR 710, right? But,
So, and then just keep your baseline condition in the rest of it.
But again, and again, I don't want to get into the policy, I don't like taking pieces of the policy. If we say we're going to comply with 710, I'm hearing what you're saying,
Right.
well, let's comply with 710. And, I don't want to get into incorporating statutes or by reference.
all right, well, we've taken that language out, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's not
I think
unlike a
all we're putting in here is when somebody picks this up 3 years from now, if there's a big noise issue and a noise complaint, we want everybody to know that we've advised you to take the baseline now, but we're giving you the choice to do that. And if it requires you at 3 years from now to shut the site down in order to do that, that's what it's gonna require.
That's fine.
It's not unlike what we did with the turbine.
Right.
We did CMR 310, and that's not specified anything beyond that.
That's fine.
Yeah,
so
everything we struck is in 310. right? So-
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we end this at 310 CMR 710, period.
No.
We're gonna leave our recommendation in.
Should the applicant, starting with
The last
should?
sentence.
Yes.
Well,
I
or
would leave the whole thing. The
Yeah.
baseline condition is
Baseline
advised to be
condition.
taken.
Last sentence.
Right.
Yeah,
We're gonna keep that last sentence that says, we may have to stop the site to do a baseline.
But you're going to do a baseline, so you won't have to do that. It's very simple.
Easy peasy.
Really?
okay.
All right.
I note that it is 9 o'clock, and we have, when are we running to? 9:30, so we got about a
Okay.
half an hour to run through here.
Okay.
So we'll go through as much as we can in the next half hour.
All right, 42 is up, wait, we just did,
We just did 41, we're on 42.
tree clearing is prohibited until all demolition activities are completed, with the exception of localized clearing necessary for remediation activities or for the installation of erosion control measures.
what the discussion was, we don't have concrete crushing, we're not going into phase two, we're not doing this, but we need to cut trees for access, for staging purposes, and for our trucks, and particularly to come in from Tilden Road, that you've walked in from Tilden Road.
Oh, yeah, it's
You can't get in there. So we have to, if you want all the trucks off the road, which we want them off the road, and we want all materials off the road, we gotta get in and get an adequate site to do that.
But you're not clear cutting the entire site to
No.
do that?
No.
Are you clear cutting phase one?
Well, we would want to cut whatever we can cut. Again, we're talking about mobilizing an incredibly complicated
So the answer is yes.
We want to mobilize and be as efficient as we possibly can and go build the project. So we just don't want our hands tied in a way that prohibits us from doing what we do, which is you mobilize your tree clearer, if you find efficiencies, and we fully recognize that one thing can't step on the other, but the reason that we are paying $100,000 more to eliminate the crusher is to address that concern when we talked about the trees coming down and the noise. I thought we had satisfied that concern.
I don't know that we sort of tied those two things together, but,
We talked about not having it all cleared so that the noise from removing things would sort of be dulled by the vegetation around it.
I
We
don't know, I
can't
don't know
do-
what this, it's got.
It's a catch-22.
Taking a building down, putting building up, building roads, I
It's
mean, we
noisy.
need to build the project.
Right.
but yet there are some things you need to steer clear of though, right? The remediation areas,
Right,
Absolutely.
right?
absolutely.
Have to comply with OSHA. We can't have a demolition option and have tree clearing anywhere near it. There are many, many considerations. But there's a lot of acreage that we need to mobilize on and get things going. If we're gonna build basins and have them ready to receive water, when everything else starts to come together and have those basins ready, that the tree clearing is part of that lead time to get to that point. It's a lot of different critical paths we're trying to manage. And we talked a lot about the stormwater system, being able to receive the water and manage water through the life of the project. Getting ahead of the game on the basin construction is a key critical path.
What if you had something like tree clearing is phased based on the construction operations or something like that, or phased?
I just heard that they want to clear phase one. That's
We
how
wanna go
I
build the
interpreted that
project.
answer.
We want to go build the project, and, yeah, I don't want to soft step it. We want to go build the project. And we understand that we can't clear trees where we're remediating or take down trees right next to a building that's being demolished.
Yeah, and I think what Ann was saying is that some level of screening and attenuation might help during the demolition process. I think that's why this is sort of set up this way.
Been
I just want to,
restricted.
again, during demolition, there will be 50 other things happening. This is not a one.
Linear
it's not a-
process.
It's not a linear process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Once you-
if you want to clear all the trees as part of sort of an initial step, then it seems to me that you better take a noise baseline.
Understood.
Do you want to eliminate 42?
No,
No? How do you want to reword it?
maybe just the way it is. They need a baseline, whether they get it now or they
No,
get it
no,
later.
42 is tree clearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We definitely need the piece about remediation activities to stay, right?
Yep.
Um,
I take out the word prohibited.
And put in restricted.
I would rather sort of deal with this if what you really expect to do is to clear phase one, then I would say establish a baseline before all of that starts to happen from a noise perspective. Because I anticipate that that could be one of the issues that we're going to hear about. And so I would say that personally, I would be okay with taking that prohibition out if you've established a pre-construction noise baseline. But that's my personal thought.
Yeah, I understand.
Are you gonna do it?
I just haven't, I
Haven't gone
haven't
that
gotten
far.
consultation from an expert on that topic yet, so I'm hesitant to answer until
Okay, well, you'll have till the next time
Right,
to
so we'll hold.
Noise is-
figure out that
Noise
answer.
is a free appeal.
Right. 42 will be held in abeyance until such time as we can figure it out?
Well, hopefully next time, because
Absolutely.
we need to get on with it, right?
I know. 43, they're okay with 43. 44 is okay. 45, the applicant shall obtain the approval of the planning board through the town planner if minor changes from the plan and/or details are needed for lighting, signage, or landscaping. The color of the luminaries shall be submitted to the board for final approval prior to installation.
The question is, what's the whole luminary thing all about?
Isn't that the,
I think that's the
Streetlights?
color
Streetlights.
of the lights. The LED lights, I think that's where that came from, right?
Right, the color of the LED
Right.
lights is something
Is it
that
5,000,
you asked them to
4,000,
go back
3,000, right?
to look at, to make sure that they were happy
Yep.
with what they were really,
So
really picking.
it's really the color of the light itself,
Yeah,
right?
can we say it's
The
submit-
temperature, right?
Can we just say it's submitted to the town planner?
Yeah.
yeah.
All right,
Oh, instead of to the board, it says to the town council.
correct.
All right, so.
It's okay with us.
And 46, up to 50 additional shade trees or evergreen trees may be added by the planning board under the direction of the town planner to enhance the screening within the 60-foot buffer. Minimum sizes shall be as indicated on the plan for street trees and evergreen trees.
I thought we would like that stricken, for the simple reason is this has been peer reviewed. There was no suggestion of this. And we have another provision which we're not objecting to, where you have 3-year, 90% health rate and all that. So I don't understand why, if we've had something peer review in our landscape plan and vegetation plan's okay, why we want to throw in another 50 trees.
I think we're particularly concerned about the 60-foot buffer and the encroachment to the 60-foot buffer.
Right, so it's already been peer reviewed and.
But we're not
Okay, well, fine.
convinced that
so you
it necessarily
disagree-
will solve the
So you
problem.
disagree with your peer reviewers?
No, we're preserving our options, because what we're really concerned about is making sure that the screening happens appropriately.
Could I make a suggestion that instead of just adding trees, which, cost a lot of money, and we've already invested substantially into the landscape plans, what I've done before is have an arrangement where the planner would walk with us before we plant certain sensitive buffer areas and locate the trees that are on the plan together to position them in a way that makes sense, when sometimes the landscaping plans don't quite figure out the views that are most important.
I think that we assumed that that was probably going to happen anyway, but we wanted to have a safeguard in there, should the buffer be thin in an area, that there might be the possibility of adding a few additional trees to make sure that the buffer is what is perceived as a landscape condition.
Particularly where those roads encroach into the 60-foot buffer.
40,000 dollars isn't a few trees, so I don't know what to say. I thought we were very generous, and I feel a little bit like no good deed goes unpunished here, but
Now, there
not my
are
decision.
areas that I actually disagree with you, that I think that the buffer should have been enhanced more. And that's particularly along the road F in the narrow strip. So I think it just gives insurance to you that you get a landscape buffer.
How did the number 50 come up, Karen?
I pulled it from thin air, actually.
It says up to. It doesn't
to
mean,
50.
it doesn't mean 50. It could be such that there's only 10.
Right.
I mean, it could even be 5, depending upon where everything gets located.
Yeah, but up to means
Does not mean.
50 is required. That's what
No, it
means.
does not mean 50 is required.
It
I
does.
don't read it that way.
Up to 50 shade trees may be added
By the planning board.
by the planning board, so you can.
Under the direction of the
so
town
you-
planner.
You have
So
a
we're
right,
not-
you have a
we're
right
not-
to put 50 in.
We're not going back to anybody else. It's a planning board review of what gets built, and it's the ability to supplement.
But it doesn't mean that you're required to put in 50 new trees.
It means we're required to if you tell us to put them in, that's what it means.
Can I interrupt? We're happy to add 50 trees, if that's what it comes to. I think we would like to move on.
Okay.
Up to 50 trees.
Up to, it's not 50 written in stone, it's up to 50.
Moving
I'll
on.
buy you lunch if it's not 50 trees when the project's done.
Okay.
Okay, we all agree it's 49.
49.
right?
Yeah, really. Okay, all right. Can
Tree
we-
costs more than lunch.
Please. Okay, now we are
And I,
for what?
I'm sorry, I do have a question on 47, and it's just a real quick question. I know you approved it, but it does say here, carriage-style garage doors of the two-door configuration. And I know we went back and forth on this back, and I thought it was a single door, not two double doors, or two doors.
It's a single door. Yep.
But it looks like two doors.
But it looks like two doors.
Yeah.
It's, right.
That's what we're talking about.
So it's
It has
called
the
a,
appearance of two doors.
called a carriage-style door that has the appearance of two doors.
Yeah. I think that's what we agreed on,
Yes, that's what we agreed on.
yeah. You good with that, Richard?
It doesn't look like two doors to me, but anyway, that's fine.
Okay.
They put two sets of handles.
Okay,
On
I
either
just,
side.
when I read this, I don't, in my opinion, that's not what
Well,
was.
it is a single, it's a
Single
single
door.
16-foot carriage-style door.
Okay. As long as you're fine with the wording, I'm fine with the wording.
Yep.
All right, now we go
50.
50. Driveways to individual units should be a minimum of 21 feet long, measured between the garage door and the far edge of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Edge closest to the residence, where a sidewalk is provided, excuse me, and 23 feet measured between the garage door and the edge of the traveled way in locations without a sidewalk.
Conceptually, whatever the plan is, we're gonna build, but to get into 142 driveways and measure them, because Aaron told us in particular, some of those driveways that exist that have already been peer reviewed and approved aren't 23, they're like 22 point something.
Oh, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Well, you so stretch the tape.
Up to 23.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll say between 22 and 23 feet.
Can we just say per plan?
Per plan.
Not to be less than what's shown in the plan, something like that?
So what's the shortest distance we have on the plan?
I believe the shortest distance is 22 feet.
Oh, well.
So VEI.
Then why don't we just change it
looked
to
at
22
this,
feet?
Right, VAI, Vanass, looked at this and chimed in on it and said
Right.
they accepted it, the way the plan is right now.
Right. So if there's
You
nothing,
have to build it in accordance with the
Sure.
plans, just get rid of the condition.
and there's nothing shorter than 22 feet.
So I scaled and they were all, I mean, agreed. They're around 21 to 23 feet.
All right.
I mean,
That's
they
okay
are-
with me.
They are around that.
So can we delete 50? We don't need it.
I would say, why was this put in?
Deep 6,
And I
50.
think did this come from a recommendation?
Yes, somebody recommended
Yeah.
it. I don't remember who. I have
It
the
was,
whole.
yeah, it was a Vanass comment, and then we replied back saying that all the driveways are at least 22 feet, and in a November 7th letter from Vanass, they note that all are a minimum of 22 feet, and they are, the ones without a sidewalk have 22 and a half, the minor 6-inch deviation is not expected to materially inhibit circulation, and they had no further comment, so we think
Okay.
it was addressed.
We'll take it out.
Take it out. All right, the next one is
53.
53. Low-flow plumbing fixtures shall be used for water conservation and shall not be replaced with higher flow fixtures.
So we had this
I know.
conversation before. All of our fixtures that come with the home are low-flow fixtures, and the majority of the choices that we offer at our design studio are low-flow fixtures, but we do have a handful, like a rain head shower, if you've seen those fixtures that are very popular right now. There are some fixtures that are not considered low-flow. and we allow our customers to go to a design studio and pick, and things like a rain head shower is incredibly popular. It's in just about every commercial you see lately for plumbing fixtures. So we would just like the condition to say that the homes must include low-flow fixtures, but customers may elect to upgrade or select other fixtures, on a case-by-case basis. I don't know the best language for it, but that's the reality, is that every once in a while, someone will pick, a high-end shower with a rain head or some tiles in the walls that spray water, and, there's a lot of wild stuff out there. And when you buy a home like this, that's absolutely something that people are.
Well, the other thing too is, water conservation notwithstanding, they have to pay the bill. They're paying for their own water. So if they're using too much of it, then they're gonna pay the price. So,
That wasn't the intent of this.
I know, I
The intent of this
understand.
was water conservation for the town.
Should it be low-flow plumbing fixtures should be encouraged by?
Is there such a thing as a low-flow fixture for rain head flow?
All I know is that the ones that the suite that we offer with Kohler, that's our national supplier, that's one example of one that's not considered low flow. And we're definitely willing to commit to the standard faucets that come in the home being low flow, and we can certainly encourage low flow or.
Well, but the language I had proposed is low-flow plumbing fixtures shall be the standard specification offering. So in other words, that's how they do it. This is, that's what they offer, and they set out before everyone. But if someone is deviating from that, then they can do it. So there's no problem if that'll be the standard specification offering.
Unless everybody does it, then you have no low-flow fixtures at all. Right?
We should change our general bylaws.
No, it's just being transparent as to how they do that. They do low-flow, that's everything they offer. But if someone says, and again, I don't want to get into, particular people have particular concerns. Who knows, there might be health concerns or otherwise why you need something that's more than low-flow.
low-flow plumbing fixtures shall be used as standard specs.
Shall
For
be the
water conservation.
Yeah, should be the standard specification
Right.
offering.
And I would eliminate and shall not be replaced with high-flow fixtures, because, it's all about personal choice,
that's what-
whether, we agree.
I disagree with that.
Well, that's fine.
That's my disagreement.
Well, and
but-
you can't enforce it either.
You can't, it's unenforceable.
I can go to the hardware store and buy whatever I want and fit
Of
and put
course,
it on.
of course. You could cut the head off and let it spray out if you wanted to, right? But what we're talking about is what we're trying to encourage in terms of the development here. And all I'm saying is, we're trying to encourage water conservation. We are very tight on water in this town, right? And even though we're connecting, it's a very difficult situation right now, and we should insist upon having low-flow fixtures, and that's,
Well, if there's a
I will
general,
get off my soapbox.
well, if the
If
general
you all
bylaw
want to
makes
do it
everyone in the
differently.
town do it, then I would agree with you. But that's
Well,
not-
we're not talking about to everybody in the town. We only have this proposal in front of us, and, we're cognizant of the fact that the town is in very difficult straits with water.
Right, I know, we're paying $120,000 to help the town figure that out.
In what way?
That's part of our mitigation that we give the Board of
Okay,
Selectmen.
good. All right, then we'll make sure that happens, and we'll change this and tie that into the mitigation then. That would be okay with me.
So low-flow plumbing fixtures shall be the standard specified offering.
Correct.
And shall not be replaced
Well,
with
I would
high.
just strike
Strike
that.
Strike that.
Yep. Okay, now we go 54, 55, we need to go to 56.
Let me just tell you, it's just a word. The only thing is, prior to any tree clearing included in Phase 2, and I just want to say, this ties right into 57, just say, except for the Hall Road for the Wampatuck Ball Field. Just in other words, so it just ties into 57, that's all.
I don't agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that either. The Hall Road is gonna have to be permitted separately. We're not just gonna let you build a haul road arbitrarily, right? We don't
If
have,
they're ready to go into the phase two, and the Hall Road is the first thing in phase
Wait,
two,
we're not-
you still want them to come back to the planning board, so, I
Right.
mean, we said they could come back, you could start phase two, essentially, if you tell us you're.
I'm not talking about phase two, Karen.
What are you talking about?
Next June, a year from this June, we're building a ball field. Phase two probably will not even be commenced at that time. And there's one of two options, either we rip up the entire front of Wampatuck School to build the ball field, or we come over the back and do no damage and have no trees on this, and have no trucks on the street.
and that's fine, as long as before you do all that, you come in and with a plan to do it.
Yeah, but what I'm just saying is,
The town should plan.
Yeah, that's
that,
what we wrote.
Yeah.
Maybe the
It's their
town should do a
permit.
plan for access through the Wampatuck School property.
That's what we
if that's,
wrote.
if that's what you want me to present to the selectmen, I'll present it to the selectmen and the school committee, that we rip up the Wampatuck School because
Oh, come on, let's not go there. Come on, we're getting,
all I'm trying
Because
to
you
do is have
refuse
it
to
be
put a
consistent.
plan together for
All-
the
all-
Hall Road?
All I'm trying to point out is that the ball field needs to be completed before phase two starts. And just as long as we cover that, that's all I care about.
well, 50.
That's fine.
Yeah, 57
Come
establishment.
in with a plan to how you're gonna do it and tell us how you're gonna do it, and
Can I-
we'll
can I
review that, be okay.
Can I clarify that the town is gonna be the applicant?
Right.
That's already been discussed. The
That's
town
fine.
will be the applicant with the plans for the field.
Maybe just
Yeah.
leave it alone.
I'm just, the only thing I wanna see is if you're gonna build a haul road that hasn't been permitted, hasn't been addressed as part of the stormwater management system, then show us how that's changing, right?
That's
And
fine.
if you need to clear trees, obviously, to build the road, that's part of it, right?
But the whole road goes in on phase two, right?
It goes through the phase two land, and we need a
But
plan.
it
we
goes
need a-
before they start phase two, I think that's what you're saying, right?
Right, and
Yeah.
we need a plan to do it anyway. There's no dispute over needing a plan that makes sense, that shows
Mhm.
how the water's gonna flow and where the road's gonna go.
Right.
So that'll definitely happen.
So what you want to do with 56 is say, other than that approved for the haul road, right?
Just leave it the way it is if you.
Prior to
if
any
you don't
tree
want it.
clearing? Well,
I was just
don't you
try-
need tree
I was trying
clearing?
to be transparent, but leave 56 the way it is, if that's the way you want it, you know.
Yeah, and 57 as well.
Yeah, the only comment on 57, instead of the board, I just put town planner on the 57.
Okay. It's getting late. People are getting cranky. Okay, 60.
We can make it to the finish line if you can.
Yeah, but you've got 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Fine.
We'll extend if you'll extend.
Some of us have been out, this is the 4th night out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Under, the only question I had on number 60, when it says condition 1, I think what you mean is condition 47.
No, it meant condition one, but we wanna look at, are the elevations consistent with the, what was the whole elevations in condition one? The ones that
Yeah, the ones you,
you want that.
those are listed in condition 1, right?
Right,
That makes sense.
just, is everything consistent with what you said?
Those will be the master
The
sets that we're talking
master-
about?
Oh, okay,
the
if
master-
it's- okay, if it's
the
tied in
master
with
things,
that.
right,
It's the timing of it.
right.
Okay.
The timing
No,
is the
I'm
problem.
sorry, I missed this. You can't, final building plans, this is prior to the pre-construction conference?
We can do that.
Can you do it?
Well,
Okay.
the master, a sample set of I think we should tweak the wording to say, a sample set of architecture for each unit type will be submitted to the planner prior to the pre-construction conference. That's no problem.
I mean, or if we need to move it down in the sequencing, we can move it down in the sequencing, a sample set.
Or you could say prior to the issuance of the first building
Building
permit.
permit.
Okay, so you want to move 60 down, is that the idea?
It's probably just easier to do what Dave just said.
No, building permit makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, move it to the building permit section.
Sure.
Thank you.
And we'll put what you said, the sample set is
Yep.
what, right, all we're looking for.
Okay.
All right, then we have 61.
61 and 62, you've already said as part of the package, the sewer and water has already been permitted, but more importantly than that, when we get to section 95, that's all gonna be ratified and reaffirmed in this mitigation deal with the selectmen, so that's gonna be part of 95.
Okay, what about,
Well, hold it. So this says you're going to obtain approvals.
We already have a,
Provided them to the board.
they do have their approval from the selectmen.
Well, I'm assuming there's another level of detail you have to get here in order to physically connect to the town sewer and the town water systems, right?
that's like anything else, it's in phase one, you gotta comply with the DPW, Kevin Cafferty and Sean
Right.
tell you what
And so I
you
think
gotta
that's what this is addressing, is that you'll have that before the pre-construction conference starts, right?
Yes.
I think that was the idea.
You actually have you have your approvals for sewer, but you get issued a sewer permit.
But
gotta
don't we
issue
have a
a sewer
blanket
permit.
condition that
What's that?
says you have to comply with all yada, yada, yada? Why say it again?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that this is pre-construction conference, so we're not allowed to have a pre-construction conference if someone's on vacation, even though we're not doing anything with water and sewer? Again, it's a timing thing, Karen.
Should they be required prior to the start of construction? When do you wanna have these?
Well, generally, they start, when you have the pre-construction conference, they plan on starting construction practically, the week
The next day.
thereafter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we ask for all approvals prior to construction.
All the details.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Give us the permit that you've gotten from DPW.
Just to be clear, we know of no other permit. Our sewer work and water work is in the plans, and we have approval from the selectmen. There is no other permit.
I think he gives you a piece of paper. I'm pretty sure he gives you a piece of paper.
Isn't there a ground opening permit or something like that?
That says there's a permit. But I could be wrong.
Well, why don't we specify?
Well, they reviewed it, right? The DPW
I'll
reviewed
find
it.
out tomorrow. I can find
All right.
out tomorrow.
All right,
I'll find out tomorrow.
yeah, just
We'll
take a
find
look at
out and
this.
we'll hold those for next time.
Okay.
All right, so 63 is a long one.
Well, just to jump into that, this is the only comment, we're okay with A, B, C, D, and with the section with either going E or F, we're not going E, so E's deleted, we're going with F. So that's the only comment, is just to specify for you, are we going E or F? We're going F,
You going F?
going F.
Which is now E.
You prefer to go F, is what you're saying?
Yeah, other than that, that's fine.
Okay.
What does the planning board want? The planning board is the one who gets to make the decision.
All right.
The decision what?
On what type of surety?
I don't think so.
It's the planning board.
Statute.
So what do they want? Do they want E or F?
Should that be the statute?
If you want, yeah, please. Yeah, pull it. That's not what the statute says, which I'll pull up for you. But we went through this whole discussion, at great cost. We're gonna post a bond for phase one for the entire cost of the infrastructure as required by the town's consulting engineers. Just so there's none of this covenants or any of the other nuances to do with this. The money's there, period, boom.
Yeah, I think this is one we're gonna have to talk about, right? Because
You
They're
talked
two
about it,
different-
but there wasn't an actual decision. The board never said yes, no. I'm just asking for the board to say yes, no. It's very simple. What does the board want?
why is E not acceptable?
Why? Because we'd rather post a bond from a national surety company that's acceptable to the treasurer.
E is only the
What's-
precursor to posting the bond anyways.
Yeah. All
Oh, so do we need E and F?
no, you don't even need
No, it
it,
says-
because what we're saying, we're not even going that. Normally what people do to save money is they get the covenant, they build out 70 or 80% of it, then they convert to a bond. What we're saying is we're just going bond right from the outset.
How about some cash?
Nope, that's why they're,
49 trees, how about? I'll put them in up front. A cash bond for a project of this magnitude is completely unreasonable. Never come close to doing something like that in any municipality. Quite frankly, most developers couldn't withstand it.
What's the downside of a bond?
there is none.
It ultimately goes to a bond anyway. The only difference is, only difference is, the starting point's the same. The only difference is whether I go through criminal row for E before I get to F.
Exactly.
So how big is this performance guarantee gonna be, this bond?
It's gonna be as big as the town's consulting engineers recommend and what you approve.
But what do you anticipate?
Millions.
20, 30, 50? I mean, millions is big.
I'd say for phase one, you're looking at 3 to 5 million. Because you're posting it up front before anything's really done. So you have to, it's bonded for, you know, to cover everything.
Funds the dream. It funds the dream.
Right.
All right.
It's right there.
So we're striking E and just going with the language of F, correct?
Right, so you have to pick one.
I'll pick F,
Yeah, that's fine.
So
F, which is now E.
It's hard to see.
right, so it'll just, right, it'll, when
I
it gets
could go with that.
eradicated, just gets to, E gets totally, F gets
But
moved up.
we'll set the value.
They'll submit an estimate, which will then go to the consulting engineer for review,
Right.
and that's what will, but.
And
that's
it will
what
be our
determine
final decision.
The bond, right,
Yeah.
right.
Right.
I'm just reading from the statute here, what the statute says. Before endorsement approval of the plan, you have to provide for construction service of way municipal services by any of the three methods, and three methods are covenant, bond, cash. And it says, or a combination of these methods, as may be selected from time to time by the applicant.
They've just agreed to the bond.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
And
Good news.
the final value is our decision.
Yeah.
Yes, it has to be
Yes.
adequate,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Like I
Just
said,
want to be
they'll
clear
get-
on that.
They'll get an estimate, and our consulting
Yep.
engineer will
Long
review
as,
it.
long as it's our final decision. Okay.
Okay, the next one is 67.
We're 5 minutes past the witching hour here.
It's
We have other people here.
Be next is on the agenda?
What's that?
They're next on the agenda.
We'll give you
with,
some more time. We're next on the agenda.
You're next on the agenda?
With the,
Well, I'm just telling you, I'm not staying here till 11 like
No,
I
no.
have the last 3 nights, okay? So,
No. What I'm just saying is if we get here is like, there's like 3 clerical things and we'll be up to 85.
All right, what's
all
67?
right, you got 10 more minutes and
Yeah.
then,
67 is just prior to any start of work for Phase 2.
Oh, for phase 2?
Yeah, because we're not even near Wampatuck School. That's in Phase 2.
Okay.
In the other question was under the impression that we're putting up a snow fence. That was the discussion we had.
no, not,
It's, a lot of people in the town don't like that, and they just want to make sure that everything's gonna be provided in accordance with OSHA regulations. They think that, this privacy fence and the chain link fence will be safer adjacent to the school, but whatever is required by OSHA.
Well, let's look and see what OSHA, so
you
if
know,
we...
an
if we
orange
can-
fence isn't gonna be a real deterrent.
That's right.
Right.
So
They'll go
that's-
right over it.
Yeah. So,
I know, it's tough, isn't it?
Right.
They got a perimeter fence that's running around the whole place.
68 is
It's only
fine.
money.
We talk about 69, or?
Are you okay with 67? Because we're going on there.
Well, we're just looking at what OSHA was, let's see what OSHA says.
What OSHA requires.
Well, if we just make it whatever OSHA requires,
Yeah.
we're fine with that.
We just did that.
But
So-
I would, we would like to put up because OSHA does not require us to put up a fence along the Wampatuck School. I met with the leader of the Proving Grounds Group. I listened to her concerns. She asked if we would be willing to put up some sort of fence just to delineate and try and deal with the attractive nuisance. We offered a 4-foot snow fence, and my cost just went up by an order of, tenfold. So it would be nice if we could stick to what I had offered to address that concern.
Well, public
If
safety
OSHA,
officials in the town.
This is not fall protection, this is a fence to try and show the children that it's private property and not to trespass on the property. It's not gonna be near an excavated hole in the ground. OSHA doesn't require us to put up a fence through the woods along Wampatuck.
Right, it just doesn't feel like a 4-foot snow fence that will be trampled down almost immediately is going to provide much of a deterrent. And if what the idea is to provide a deterrent from an attractive nuisance, it seems like a higher fence is at least in order.
Can
But
we
this-
look at OSHA, see what OSHA says, see if there's another alternative that meets everyone's
You
concerns?
look at whatever you like.
I think Mass Department of Public Safety probably has the more helpful stuff than OSHA, for the record.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this would still just be for construction, right? It's not permanent?
No.
Right. Before we start phase 2, we were gonna erect this fence along the property line, just so that kids wouldn't wander through, onto the private property.
Right, but just, and then it would be.
And then take it down,
Yeah,
just
okay.
like erosion control.
Okay.
when we're done.
I project that they will all be in there on phase 1,
Right.
but I'll buy you lunch if they're not.
Okay, 68.
Is it fine?
Okay.
Wait.
What?
I thought we agreed that there was not gonna be a gate on Ermine Street.
There isn't. This is for
This is during the
construction.
construction.
Oh, because, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
All right. We're gonna beat you senseless.
Gee, I'm just asking.
Okay. 69.
But 69, the only question here is twofold. One, if we get rid of or sunset, whatever was earlier, 4:30, it's dark at 4:30 in the winter.
That's right.
And what the gearing towards this is, exterior work, yes, if people are painting inside the house, they shouldn't be limited as to time. Because particularly if you're trying to deliver a unit to someone, oftentimes the painters are there until late into the night painting.
They did the same thing with the junior high. They allowed them to work inside
Yeah,
until,
but there was a limit. They couldn't work inside at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
probably till 11.
Right.
Is there a reason why that would be a problem?
Noise.
Paint doesn't make noise.
It's the,
People are inside, people are gonna be outside when they leave, I'm just saying that
it's the coming and going.
it's the coming and going, it's the people with the
Living next to it.
with the radios on, all that
11
stuff.
Give for
11 would be
everybody.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
11 would be fine. Can we just say that, I guess the sunset issue I don't quite understand in the middle, through the winter, the sun setting at 4 o'clock, a workday ends at 5, 6, 6:30. So if somebody's wrapping something up outside the home, provided that they're following OSHA guidelines, why would we stop a workday at 4 o'clock? That just seems unreasonable. I wouldn't stop any other productive business at 4 o'clock.
The sunset was a defined time, that's why the board put sunset. Sunset is a defined time every day.
Yeah, I
versus-
understand it.
Versus dusk.
But in the winter, could be 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
Right.
and
So when would you expect to stop?
and these are hourly workers that get paid, they want to work till 6.
You could just strike that
But
and
when
just
would
say
you
no later
expect
than
to
7
stop?
PM.
Well, exterior work, I just see no reason to deviate from the 7 PM.
But they can't work in the dark.
Again, I said compliant with OSHA, so whatever the situation may be, let's say they're working at a garage door that's open and there's plenty of light. I just wouldn't want someone to say, well, you're stepped outside and it's 5 o'clock, and that guy is trying to earn money hourly during a workday at 5 o'clock, 4:30, or gal.
This is the same condition you put on every project.
Yeah.
If you change it here, you're gonna end up changing it for every project.
Is it the right condition?
Well, they'll have to decide that.
Yeah, but this is also treated kind of as a special project. I mean, we have 90-some odd conditions here, so I don't think that you would be establishing a precedent. I mean, you have 70 acres of land here you're dealing with. What other projects in town of Scituate are dealing with 70 acres of land?
Are you gonna have people starting work at 7 AM and finishing at 7 PM?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Well, the question is, how does that disrupt the neighbors, right?
It doesn't, really.
It doesn't?
Well,
Depends what they're doing.
right.
Depends on what you're doing, of course. And certainly during the evening hours, what you'll be doing is turning on all the lights, right?
But we're not talking about staging a house with light and working on it under floodlights. We're just saying that,
What are you talking about?
we're talking about the example I just said. There's a gentleman that's mounting a garage door, and the garage is lit, and he's wrapping up at 5 o'clock, and the sun's down, but he wants to make money and feed his family. And they don't want to go home at 4 o'clock for the entire winter.
I mean, I feel like we're kind of back to the pedestrian walkways where no one's gonna call on this guy that's fixing the garage, but if you have huge equipment that's out there making a ton of noise, the town wants something to fall back on to say, you're
Yeah,
not supposed to be out there. The
I think
town-
that's why it's
But
in here,
let me
right?
clarify, because in Cohasset, not far away, we had something written there that was similar to that, and we had one resident who called at 4:01 when
Oh,
the
my.
painter's van was outside, and the painter was trying to make money to feed his family, and every time we had someone there at 4:01, that's what I'm trying to avoid. We're trying to build the project. We had an hour-long conversation about how long is it gonna take, because we don't want to live through construction for 10 years. We need to build houses. We need to let these folks work. And I think 4 o'clock, ending a workday at 4 o'clock is not reasonable.
Well, I mean, people work 7 to 3:30 all the time, right? So you're just saying you have a different schedule you would like to adopt. But an 8-hour workday, 7 to 3:30 is not unusual at all,
Yeah,
right?
if you have multiple workers, someone could start working at noontime.
Well, you could have them start earlier, too.
Well,
Right. I mean,
not if there's another tradesman doing their work, you can't.
Yeah, but that's your challenge, right? That's gonna be your challenge
it's always
each and
been.
every day, right? So we're just trying to set a set of conditions that we can live by.
I understand that, but sunset in the winter isn't reasonable. It's not.
Why
I
don't you
don't think
wait?
7 PM is either.
Bill?
I was gonna say, why don't you give us a proposal, what you think the language would be, and we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, what else?
And
70.
70.
The 70, that's fine, but this whole police deal, I understand this was an input from the police from the Brotherhood to start to have details. If we're bringing all our equipment that we already told you we're staging, everything, there's gonna be nothing on the road here. And so we really don't, our only objection is of the police detail, and that's the same commentary on number 75 also.
So if you don't need it, you don't need it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Well, we don't
But if
feel,
you need it, you need it, right? I mean, why is this an issue?
why is this an issue?
Yeah.
Because it's arbitrary. Who decides we need a police detail?
Well, I think you and the police are gonna have to work that out.
Oh, if we need police details, we'll get that, but this isn't
Yeah.
what this says.
All this says is provide notification, right? And then there needs to be a determination.
Then I would suggest that they come up with the language, because that's what it's meant to be, that
Mhm.
if there's a significant, if they have 20 earth-moving trucks coming, and they're coming on tractor trailers.
We'll work with Karen on the language. I understand, you're right, Karen, I agree with
I
that.
mean, so
All right.
that's all it's meant to be.
Got it.
Okay?
And I think the next 15 in a row, other than one clerical.
So
whatever.
71, so 71's okay?
71 we'll discuss, it's the same police
It's the same-
detail.
it's the
It's
same
the same
thing.
issue.
Same
But
issue.
one of the things that's really important here, sometimes these construction vehicles to beat the traffic or whatever, show up at 6 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning. And if you have a gate in front of the Tilden Road access, they're out
They
there.
park there.
They park there and they've got the truck running. No,
Understood,
we can't allow that.
absolutely.
We're gonna come up with a way to get these trucks that, you know, maybe drive through the night, and some of them do, that come from out of state, where they get hung up and they have sleep hours they have to maintain. We'll get them into the site and find a place for them, you know, to get inside. But we also understand that it's inappropriate to have a truck idling at 4 in the morning that anybody can hear. So
Right.
that's just something we have to
This-
manage.
Sound travels.
Right.
Disturbs the transit.
So other than 75, the police issue, which Karen did this, we're good right up through 83. And just to
So
speak
just to be clear, 75, you're going to propose some language? Is that what
on,
you're
yeah,
talking about?
so, yeah, so the same, those are all police detail related.
In the
Okay,
event that a police detail is needed, probably might not be needed.
right.
So I don't see the issue.
Well, why don't, we'll work on the language and we'll have a proposal back for next time.
Okay.
for you.
So right through 83, we're good. In 84, it's just a technicality, just to explain the legality of this. The restrictions and everything are contained in the master deed. By statute, you cannot file the master deed until the as-built plans are done, which is when there's an occupancy permit for the first unit for sale. So this is a timing thing. If it said certificate of occupancy prior to the first certificate of occupancy and only excluding, you know, the model, the office, and the clubhouse, that's just a timing thing. The other things is a given. But that's just what the law is on the master deed.
So how do you want to rewrite this?
Yeah, so,
All three of them just shift down to first occupancy.
yeah, so in other words, we just bring them down to, under the section required prior to certificate of occupancy.
When you say bring them down, are you talking more than 84?
85, let's see, in accordance with Scituate, the common space we kept, this restriction shall be incorporated in the condominium trust. The condominium trust is filed with the master deed, which has to be when there's a certificate of occupancy.
Same with 86.
Before a certificate of occupancy is issued, right?
Right. And 86 should be deleted because it's all contained in 89, as just as we had earlier.
And that's what the note said, it may not be needed, yep.
Yep,
And I don't know if 84 and 85 are needed, it's probably just one of them.
yep,
So we can verify that, you know.
So you'll work that out?
And we'll work it out and move it down to occupancy.
right.
Okay.
So there really won't be anything required prior to the application for building permits then?
Right, that
And-
can probably be taken out.
And just a technical thing is under 87, when it says the land court, and the very first time it says, or the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, parentheses, hereinafter the land court, because it's one or the other, as long as it's an official recording office.
Language then.
Right. So that's.
Or the what?
Or the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, and then I was just definitionally gonna call it hereinafter referred to the land court, so that in the subsequent ones, we don't have to change anything.
Yeah, we probably don't want to create that confusion though, right?
Yeah, or we
should just go through and change-
Yeah, we'll just say
change
or,
We'll make
Yeah.
it legal.
right, or 88 is the same thing as just or, and that's fine.
89?
89, just in addition to excluding model home sales office, and we just say clubhouse. Other than that, 89 is fine. 90 is fine.
91's fine?
91, 92 is fine.
93?
93 is redundant, we got it covered in number 4.
I'll check.
We have it covered in number 4. I don't understand.
Number 4 has the expiration of the 2 years. And if number 4 sets forth the substantial use, it's dead on what the statute says.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you just check that, Karen?
Yep. 94 is fine. And the only caveat on 95, the language is fine. I spoke with the chairman of the selectmen and Jim Boudreau. And Karen, did Jim talk to you on the timing of this? We're okay with?
He talked to me on the timing and said that you were gonna bring a discussion up with the planning board tonight, and that we would have a discussion.
Right. When, instead of putting a date for this, because you can't have a date, because we're at the mercy of town council selectmen, I was supposing that it'll be done within, that's what Jim Boudreau's thing, 60 days of expiration of the appeal period of this permit, on or before.
But will the planning board know what you're doing?
Say again?
I would like to change this language, too.
But will we know what the mitigation is?
It's whatever the
As long
selectmen
as it
decide.
includes the comprehensive water and wastewater capacity study,
It does,
that's all I care about.
yes.
Well, there are a few other things we might want to care about. I'd like to be informed.
No, I mean within our
All right.
decision,
Okay.
all right?
Yeah.
We'll see.
So what Jim and I discussed is that they were gonna come out with a proposal tonight, and so they're saying within 60 days expiration of appeal period.
Right.
You guys have to decide if that's sufficient for you.
So,
I'm not following that, I'm
yeah,
sorry,
you
it's
have to
getting
do
late.
it. You have to do this, because in order to have this, the selectmen have to approve it, town council has to vet the mitigation agreement, it has to be voted by the selectmen at a meeting, all right? And so you can't do this until this is there, but I'll tell you what I'll do, Steve. If we go with this, I don't want to step on the selectmen's toes, it's their thing, where the word says may. If they're okay with the selectmen, if it's not being offensive, put will.
I would much prefer that.
I've been told it should be May, sorry.
No, I'm
Okay, I don't want to offend it.
No.
Jim specifically told me yesterday, May. I reviewed this condition specifically with him.
Well, let's put a little marker on that, and we'll have a conversation about it then.
We're amenable to that, but we don't want to get in a political
Okay.
conundrum.
Also on Appendix A, just gonna change after registry deeds, also write or land court.
Okay. Really appreciate the board's helping us through this. I think we made some tremendous ground here.
Couple trees here, couple trees there.
Yeah, let's hear it for the trees.
Are we gonna get done May 10th?
We're there?
Well, Karen?
Okay, we have a few things to follow up on, but we should be
Yeah,
able
we're
to
good.
get this sort of wrapped up at the next,
So-
and I think we need a continuation, right?
Yeah, we have a motion.
There is a motion
Do
here.
we have a motion?
Yep.
Let me read it. I'll approve it.
May 10th, right?
I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for the residential cluster special permit for Seaside at Scituate by Toll Massachusetts Land 3 Limited Partnership, CO Toll Brothers Incorporated, off of Hatherley and Tilden Roads until May 10th, 2018 at 7 PM, and continue the time for action to file a decision with the town clerk until May 30th, 2018.
Question, caveat. I don't know what the law is, which is, once the election happens, I don't know if you have to sign it before then.
Sorry? For the May 10th?
I understand,
the
I
30th.
understand
He's
this,
talking
but
about
they,
timing.
I don't know if your signature is,
They
It won't be
sign
good.
the night of, they'll sign it the night of May 10th, because they'll vote it.
Well, we're leaving it open till we could sign it till the 30th, right? That's what this is doing, right?
so what I would just suggest.
I'm not saying we would, but I'm saying,
Yeah, what I'm just
that's what
saying-
this motion is doing.
The other thing too is just we're fine with this, instead of May 30th, if we could even say that the next planning board meeting is,
You don't even need a meeting to sign.
no, you don't need it, but the only reason I'm saying
When
this,
is-
the other
when
thing
is
is,
the
we're ready to
election?
start, in other
The
words,
election's the 19th. Typically, we have them sign it the night, and then that gives
Right.
me the final time to do the preparation.
yeah. So Karen, can we say the 17th? I just want to make sure it's signed before the election, that's all.
Go ahead.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, so if you say that, if that's.
When you
May
say,
7th, May 17th,
Decision is signed.
Yeah, I just want to make sure
If
Richard
you
gets a
file it
chance
after
to
the
sign.
election, there's no issue there,
No, as long as it's signed.
right?
Right, but this is changing it to say that it has to be filed now by May 17th with the town clerk.
No, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm getting back to, is that I'm fine with saying the 30th,
I mean, I
right?
can
As long as
probably
it's
done.
signed before the
If
election.
everybody feels more
We
comfortable
know what the
having it-
criteria is.
Having it filed with the town clerk before the election, then we will make it happen. We'll make it happen.
As long as you're prepared to do it, right? Because it's
I
going to fall on
intend
you.
to have it- I intend to practically have a final document on May 10th.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what it should be. You guys should get a clean copy, the May 10th. There should be one or two small typos.
Well, that's what we're going to vote on, right?
So,
Okay,
That's
so I put the 17th down.
Okay, I'll amend the motion to say, continue the time for action of filed decision with the town clerk until May 17th, 2018.
No.
Do you have a second?
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Where'd Ann go?
I think she-
Work
Well,
on
we've
these.
got a
She needs to
majority
exercise her
decision.
knees.
so-
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
for your help. Appreciate it.
And I will once again be flying back on May 9th.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that stuff. I don't know if that's.
Okay.
Not as bad as Hong Kong, though, only England.
Although,
May 9th.
I don't know, because it was legal.
Well, this time I actually made
But
1 day
and-
buffer.
and normally anything.
I came back a day earlier. I wasn't gonna come back yet till yesterday, but the flight wouldn't have got home till like midnight last night. So I got home at midnight
That's a
on
little scary.
Tuesday, yeah, Tuesday night.
About how much money.
Shall we take a minute here till Ann gets back?
Reasonable.
Stand up.
All right, let's go off the record until then.
Plowed a lot of ground.
Thank you.
No, you won't.
No?
No.
Okay,
it should be.
Oh, okay.
It's quick.
Plans.
Quick.
next on the agenda, endorsement for Curtis Estates, 90 Ann Vinyl Road.
Okay, you want a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. The planning board has received a covenant dated April 10th, 2018, to secure the construction of the ways and installation of municipal services. Other conditions required prior to endorsement of the plan have been met. I move that the planning board approve and sign the covenant approved by town council, and that the planning board endorse the definitive subdivision plan for Curtis Estates at 90 Ann Vinyl Road. Is it a definitive subdivision or
Yeah.
a, but I thought it was a,
It was a
Well, we can
flexible.
call it flexible open space definitive subdivision.
All right.
How's that?
perfect, as amended.
You have a
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's
Is it?
it.
Oh, great.
Goodbye. It's been swell.
You guys will be signing your life away tonight.
Oh, good.
Tonight? We have to do it tonight? Oh,
You have to do it tonight. That's what you just voted.
oh, shoot,
Oh, let's
we should have
rescind
tabled that
that.
one.
Had a motion to be signed at some future date.
Yes.
That's what I heard Ann say.
Really? All right, who's up next?
Okay, next, Form A, 17 New Driftway.
It's funny, there's some funny business.
There's a lot of funny business around here. Who was your meeting last night?
Huh? That was business meeting last night.
Oh, God.
And then I had to dance.
It's the same applicant.
And I ballroom dance Wednesday night.
Right, that's,
That's like the problem.
yeah, that's, but there's, it's just
Yeah,
coincidental.
yeah,
that- Well, it's probably not, if I wanted to do it on the same night, I wanted to do 2 a night.
I've been doing it for 4 years.
What time is that?
8 o'clock,
Till?
9 o'clock.
I never saw the construction workers at 6:30.
Sorry, we are back on the record. This is Form A for 17 New Driftway. Who do we have here?
Sure. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse. The Greenbush Realty Trust, the property owner and applicant. This is an A&R submittal for the property at 17 New Driftway. That property is the Rivershed and Ice House property, as you know it. Referring you to the plan, the property line is shown here in bold. New Driftway is at the bottom right-hand page. The existing Ice House building located here, the CP's Pizza building, and then the Rivershed and Development Studio. The purpose of this plan is to convey a non-buildable parcel, parcel A, labeled as such, non-buildable, approximately 2,000 square feet in size, to the abutter on McDonald Terrace. It leaves the remainder of the 17 New Driftway parcel with 63,134 square feet of land, which meets the area requirements in the business zoning district. We're not affecting the frontages. We still have 125 feet of frontage on New Driftway for access to the 17 New Driftway property.
Does this affect any of the permits associated with the Pizza House, the Ice House, or the?
No. It does not.
No?
No, I looked at the permits, there's nothing required for lot area, I mean, for open space or anything like that. I checked them, it doesn't appear to impact the permit.
And were all those permits, were they site plan?
There
Or
was
were
site
they
plan administrative review.
no
Yes.
special permits?
No special permits. So I believe the plan can be endorsed. It's just it's a change in lot line.
Any questions?
Is there any parking in that little area?
No, that's an area right now that's just kind of a grassy area.
Just
You have a
elevated
site
up, isn't it?
plan.
It's
You guys
not.
have a site plan
Yes.
in your, little site plan in your,
It's a grassy area at the end of McDonald Terrace. It's not part of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I remember right, it's a rise.
Correct.
right.
Upside down.
So that little space is going to
Where is
McDonald
that space?
Terrace? Right here.
So it's right here.
It's going to
It's
McDonald Terrace?
Correct.
Oh, it's going straight across.
Correct.
Like that. Right?
Right, it's going straight across.
Zoom. Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you up to, Bob? You have plans?
He's gonna be
Yes.
coming in with a mixed-use special permit next week, the week after, so.
Oh,
That's who's gonna get transferred to that property. So, you'll see
A
it when it comes in.
mixed-use special permit for that parcel?
No, for
For a
the,
different parcel, for the
For the
new parcel.
McDonald Terrace property.
So you'll see it when it comes in, whenever it comes in soon.
All right.
Any other questions?
McDonald's there should be extended, but that's a whole nother thing.
Scoot out to Ford Place. There's a right of way there.
We used to be able to do that.
You used to be
have a
able to do that. Where's the do we have a motion?
Yep. Want me to read it?
Go for it.
I move to endorse as approval not required a plan of land in Scituate, Massachusetts showing a division of parcel 53-5-27, 17 New Driftway prepared by Morse Engineering Company Incorporated for applicant owner Greenbush Realty Trust, Robert J. Berwick, trustee, dated March 23rd, 2018, as the division of land shown on the accompanying plan is not a subdivision because it shows a proposed conveyance or change in lot line which does not alter the existing frontage as required under the Scituate zoning bylaw, and parcel A is labeled is labeled not a buildable lot.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
On to the next one.
Yep. On to 25 and 31 Torrey's Lane.
Again, for the
Lane, Riddle.
record, Gregory Morse representing the applicant, Bob Berwick. This is a subdivision of land at the end of Torrey's Lane. creating 2 new buildable lots. One of the lots is a 50-foot frontage lot. We have been to the ZBA and a special permit has been issued. Both lots comply with the required zoning aspects. This is in the R2 zoning district. So lot 1 on the plan has more than the 100 feet of frontage required and more than 20,000 square feet as required. Lot 2, being the special permit lot, has the 50 feet as required and has twice the land area at 40,1300 square feet. Torrey's Lane is a public road recognized by the town clerk. It's a paved roadway with access to utilities across the frontages of these lots.
We have a letter here from Elliot from the fire department concerning the water supply available to the proposed residents on Torrey's Lane.
Sure.
Hmm?
Sure. We
And you-
actually have been in touch with the DPW and are in the process of extending the water main from Greenfield Lane down to the end of Torrey's and providing a new hydrant at that location.
Okay.
I see we have the special permit. The one thing I don't think I have is the reference drawing for the special permit. Did we get that?
That was
Plan dated 1/11/18.
No, I don't have that.
Do you have that?
That was submitted to you. That was the original A&R plan that was submitted January 12th to this board. You do.
Then I can take that out of
That was submitted to us?
Correct.
This is the same plan that you modified, you've asked for the notes to be modified, and the current.
I just wanted to see what the ZBA approved.
Essentially endorsed this same plan that you see here. We did modify.
I wanted to see the,
Absolutely.
if we have it, I apologize, I haven't seen it. I didn't see anything that was dated January 11th.
We submitted 13 copies of that plan.
And guess what, this is the one time I was efficient and took them out because you always get confused. So I took that plan out,
Okay.
so we wouldn't be talking about the wrong plan.
Well, the ZBA decision was based on that specific plan, so that's why I just wanted to see it.
I'm sure it's just the plain version without any notes on it. I mean, the plan was in the office for the longest time.
Okay.
Actually, I have the whole Mylar. That's in Mylar.
Okay. While we're waiting for that, are there other questions?
I have a question for Greg. Where is this in relation to the accessory dwelling that we did? Wasn't that on Torrey's Lane?
Yeah, the accessory dwelling was, as you come down Torrey's Lane from Greenfield, it was right on the right, on the corner of Hollycrest, or Cedar
Crest.
Crest. Yeah.
And this is further
All the
down.
way at the end, it directly against the golf course. It's on the
Okay.
left-hand side.
Is that Riddle's property?
It is.
Directly abuts the golf course.
There's
Town of Scituate.
There's actually a small strip here that was conveyed to the town of Scituate, but this is all the golf course property.
Oh, great, thanks. What's proposed? This is what was approved. January 11th. So this is the identical plan, nothing's changed?
It's the identical plan for the lot geometry, the measurements, the lot areas. The only difference is I was advised by your town planner and town council to add several notes to the plan. Those notes specifically are the wording, not a buildable lot without a zoning special permit, see Plan Note 2.
Right. No, that I get. I was really talking about the physical layout of this of this drawing versus that drawing.
Sure, the physical layout has not changed in any aspect.
And did the zoning board have any other conditions?
Not that I'm aware of.
Copy of the special permit
You
is
have it
in
right
your,
here.
The zoning board
is in your
decision.
folders.
Yep. Restrictions shall be inserted in the recorded deed of said 50-foot frontage lot.
That was the only condition.
So that will be recorded?
That will be recorded on the deed when the lot is created. It is also noted on the A&R plan.
Okay.
It's still in the appeal period, so they can't even get it yet.
Okay. This is the one this is the one you filed. Other questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to endorse as approval not required a plan of land in Scituate, Mass. Showing a division of parcels 55-1-26A and 55-1-26B, vacant lots off of Torrey's Lane, prepared by Morse Engineering Company, Inc., for applicant Bob Berwick / owner Elaine A. Riddle, revised dated 4/5/18, as the division plan shown on the accompanying plan is not a subdivision because every lot shown on the plan has the frontage of at least the distance presently required by the Scituate zoning bylaw on Torrey's Lane, or is labeled as not a buildable lot without a zoning special permit.
A second?
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Accounting?
Yeah, we have several bills, I think.
We don't need any of that.
Couple. I move to approve the requisition of $3,340 to Horsley Witten Group for engineering peer review for Seaside at Scituate Toll Brothers, and for $47.38 to WB Mason for office supply.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we also have
Minutes.
3 sets of minutes. I move to approve the Scituate Planning Board meeting minutes from March 22nd, 2018, March 8th, 2018, and, 4 sets, December 21st, 2017, and October 12th, 2017.
Will we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I wasn't here, but the one on the 8th.
I wasn't, was I here? No, I
No.
wasn't here.
So we have 2 abstentions for the one on the 8th,
Okay.
but you're okay with everything else?
Yep.
Okay. Done. Liaison reports.
Conservation met last night, and they haven't closed out on the Toll Brothers either. They're concerned about basins and making sure everything's up to snuff, and worry about clay cutting and et cetera. And they're not ready to close on this. And that's about it.
What's left for them to talk about?
They are probably, they have some minor issues left. They probably intend to I don't know if they intend to close next time, but they're on the approximately the same track you are. They're going to be meeting the night before, and that's probably when they'll be reviewing. They intend to probably review conditions next time and issue an order of conditions maybe on May 9th, somewhere around that range too. So they're tracking similar to
Okay.
us.
And is there anything that they're doing that is going to be in sort of conflict with what we're proposing as
No,
conditions?
we're coordinating we
Okay,
coordinate all the
great.
time.
Excellent. Anything else on the liaison?
EDC met last night.
By the way, congratulations on getting the warrant approved. You did a great job reading it.
And you moved an adequate number of questions.
That's my job.
I mean, for the medical building down and, they approved the,
It actually went by email to the AG today.
Oh, good.
excellent.
Okay. EDC met last night, and we have some money that we have to spend by the 1st of July. So we will be, what we're going to do, because there've been I haven't talked to necessary people, but it's been requested that we help with Heritage Days, because it's a huge festival. We're looking into the pocket guide, and, a couple of other things, and plus, wayfinding, and we want kiosks that sort of tell people what's going on where. And we had some signage, wayfinding signage that I thought we were going to be putting up in the harbor, but it never happened. So we're working on that as well.
Cool.
So that's what we're up to.
Just a couple of comments. I'm not sure if everybody was at the town meeting for both evenings, but we did get past the capital budget item for the master plan update, right?
Yeah.
So we'll be talking with Brad and Karen about how do we go about getting that process going, and, I think that'll be a big effort in the next year here, right? It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but I think it's necessary too, and
Yeah.
I think it'll be an opportunity to really sort of shape the next 20 years,
The
right?
money will be available July 1st.
The last time the master plan was updated, I think it took 2 or 3 years. It took a while.
Yep.
Yep, it took a long time.
And that was starting more from scratch though, wasn't it?
No, it was not.
No?
No. There was one prior to that had never, ever been approved by town meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be approved by town meeting. And this was the first one, I think it was back in 2000 and something, 3, that did get through town meeting. So,
And what's really interesting on that master plan is what is slated for open space. The proving grounds.
well, there's a story behind that, and it's not a good story.
Well, hopefully, since I won't be here, the master plan will take into account historic resources and not tear
That was
down,
a nice letter.
Yeah.
buildings willy-nilly.
Well, there was definitely a lot of different opinions on that at town meeting.
I think it became a senior center at any cost.
Right.
I was like, if they would have proposed the senior center for Scituate Lighthouse, we would just tear that down too?
Don't go there.
Well, Richard, it's interesting because they only just approved $1 million just to study it, not to necessarily tear it down yet.
Well, yeah, I know there's still,
there's not-
I just get mad about it anyway. I'll hold it in myself.
Just thinking about town meeting, the other one was the marijuana ban did pass.
I guess there was quite a lot of discussion on that.
Twice, because there were 2 articles about it.
And the advisory board got a little contentious with themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a little contentious with themselves.
Oh, wait, there were 2 articles?
General
Yeah, one was the
bylaws.
general bylaw and one was the zoning bylaw. I
Okay.
guess the Board of Selectmen got some recommendation from town council that they needed a general bylaw as well as a zoning bylaw. So it got, it had to get discussed twice.
Was it close or was it over?
No, it wasn't close.
No.
The
No, it
second
was like
night,
199 to 32.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the second night was, the first night was 835 people. Right?
too many people.
Well, they all left halfway
And
through
then they all left
after they
after
voted.
the vote, everybody left, so there might have been maybe 200 people left.
Yeah.
Then the second night, I think they said
200,
130.
at least 231.
Yeah.
Was the second night also at the auditorium, the new auditorium?
Yeah,
Yes.
but there's only a couple hundred people.
Right,
there.
right. That's a better size for that.
But we'll never do it again,
But we heard that loud and clear, that will never be held there again.
ever.
Okay.
Works for me.
All right,
Hold it,
Karen, you get the last say. Anything?
What?
Sign.
Planning,
Signed.
development
We can
report?
talk about that while we sign.
Well, then I need to entertain a motion.
Entertain your motion.
I'm entertaining Bill's motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Okay.
So you will be getting 2 municipal
Steve, I'll send you.